Wisdom of Sirach, Chapter 1. Who can count the sand of the seas, the drops of rain, and the days of eternity? Who can search out the height of heaven, the breadth of the earth, the abyss, and wisdom? Wisdom was created before all things, and the insight of prudence was from eternity. To whom has the root of wisdom been revealed, and who has come to know her great deeds? There is one who is wise and is feared exceedingly, he who sits upon his throne. The Lord himself created wisdom. He saw and numbered her, and poured her out on all his works, in the midst of all flesh according to his gift, and he provided her for those who love him. The fear of the Lord is glory and boasting, and gladness and a crown of rejoicing. The fear of the Lord will cheer the heart, and will give gladness, joy, and long life. For those who fear the Lord, it shall be well to the utmost, and on the day of his death he will be blessed. The beginning of wisdom is to fear the Lord, and she was joined with the faithful in the womb. She constructed a foundation of life among men, and will be trusted among their seed. The gratification of wisdom is to fear the Lord, and she intoxicates them with her fruits. She will fill every house of theirs with objects of desire, and their storehouses with her harvest. The fear of the Lord is the crown of wisdom, making peace and soundness of health to flourish. The Lord saw and numbered her, and poured out the power of comprehension, and he exalted the glory of those who hold fast to her. The root of wisdom is to fear the Lord, and her branches are length of days. Warnings to the wise: unjust anger cannot be justified, for anger's decisive influence causes his fall. The patient man will hold fast until the proper time. Then afterwards gladness shall burst forth for him. He shall conceal his words until the proper time, and the lips of many will tell of his understanding. In the treasures of wisdom are the parables of knowledge, but godliness is an abomination to a sinner. If you desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord will supply it to you. For the fear of the Lord is wisdom and instruction, and his good pleasure is faith and gentleness. Do not disobey the fear of the Lord, and do not come to him with a divided heart. Do not be a hypocrite in the sight of men, and be careful with your lips. Do not exalt yourself, lest you fall, and bring dishonor to your soul. The Lord shall reveal your secrets, and in the midst of the assembly he will strike you down, because you did not come in the fear of the Lord, and your heart was full of deceit. Chapter 2. God's faithfulness and mercy. My son, if you draw near to serve the Lord, prepare your soul for temptation. Set your heart right and be steadfast, and do not strive anxiously in distress. Cleave to him and do not fall away, that you may be honored at the end of your life. Accept whatever is brought upon you, and in exchange for your humiliation, be patient, because gold is tested in fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of abasement. Believe in him, and he will help you. Make your ways straight and hope in him. You who fear the Lord, wait for his mercy, and do not turn aside, lest you fall. You who fear the Lord, believe in him, and your reward will not fail. You who fear the Lord, hope for good things, and for everlasting gladness and mercy. Consider the ancient generations and see, who believed in the Lord and was put to shame, or who stood fast in his fear and was forsaken, or who called upon him and was overlooked. Because the Lord is compassionate and merciful, he forgives sins and saves in time of affliction. Woe to cowardly hearts and weakened hands, and to a sinner who walks on two paths. Woe to a fainting heart, because it does not believe, therefore it will not be sheltered. Woe to you who have lost your patient endurance. What will you do when the Lord visits you? Those who fear the Lord will not disobey his words, and those who love him will keep his ways. Those who fear the Lord will seek his approval, and those who love him will be filled with the law. Those who fear the Lord will prepare their hearts, and will humble their souls before him. We will fall into the hands of the Lord, and not into the hands of men. For as his majesty is, so is his mercy. Chapter 3. Honoring parents. Give heed to me, O children, for I am your father, and do what I tell you, that you may be saved. For the Lord honored the father over the children, and strengthened the judgment of the mother over her sons. He who honors his father atones for his sins, and he who honors his mother is like one who stores up treasure. He who honors his father will be gladdened by his own children, and when he prays, he will be heard. He who honors his father will have a long life, and he who obeys the Lord will give rest to his mother, and he will serve his parents as his masters. Honor your father and mother in word and deed, that a blessing may come upon you from him. For the blessing of a father establishes the houses of the children, but the curse of a mother uproots their foundations. Do not glory in the dishonor of your father, for your father's dishonor is no glory to you. For the glory of a man is from the honor of his father, and it is a disgrace for children to dishonor their mother. My son, help your father in his old age, and do not grieve him in his life. And if his understanding fails, be considerate, and do not dishonor him in your prime. For kindness to a father will not be forgotten, and it will be credited to you instead of your sins. It will be remembered in the day of your affliction. Thus your sins will melt away like frost in warm weather. He who forsakes his father is like a blasphemer, and he who provokes his mother to wrath is cursed by God. Wisdom at work. My son, accomplish your works with gentleness, and you will be loved by people the Lord accepts. The greater you are, the more humble you must be, and you will find grace before the Lord, because great is the power of the Lord, and he is honored by the humble. Do not seek things too difficult for you, nor examine what is beyond your strength. Think about what is commanded you, for you do not need what the Lord keeps hidden. Do not meddle in what is none of your business, for things beyond human insight have been shown to you. Speculation has led many astray, and evil suppositions have caused their minds to slip and fall. Keep a soft heart. A hard heart will suffer ruin in the end, and he who loves danger will perish in it. A hard heart will be weighed down with pains, and the sinner will add sin to sin. There is no healing to aid an arrogant man, for a plant of evil has taken root in him. The heart of an intelligent man will ponder a parable, and the ear of a pupil is a wise man's desire. Water will quench a blazing fire, and almsgiving will atone for sins. He who repays kindnesses is mindful of the hereafter, and at the time of his fall he will find support. Chapter 4. Care of the poor and needy. My son, do not deprive the poor of his living, and do not keep eyes in need waiting. Do not grieve a soul who is hungry, nor provoke to anger a man in despair. Do not trouble a heart that was made resentful, and do not put off the gift of a man in need. Do not reject a suppliant who is afflicted, nor turn your face away from a poor man. Do not turn your eye away from a needy man, and do not give a man occasion to curse you. For if he curses you in the bitterness of his soul, his Maker will hear his prayer. Make yourself beloved in the assembly, and bow your head to a great man. Incline your ear to a poor man, and answer him peaceably and with gentleness. Deliver a person who has been wronged from the hand of the wrongdoer, and do not be faint-hearted when you judge his case. Be like a father to orphans, and like a husband to their mother, and you will be like a son of the Most High, and he will love you more than your mother. Pursuit of wisdom. Wisdom exalts her children, and lays hold of those who seek her. Whoever loves her loves life, and those who come to her early in the morning will be filled with gladness. He who holds fast to her will inherit glory, and the Lord blesses every place she enters. Those who serve her will minister to the Holy One, and the Lord loves those who love her. He who obeys her will judge the nations, and he that gives heed to her will live with confidence. If he trusts in her, he will inherit her, and his posterity will be in possession of her. At first she will walk with him on disturbing paths, and bring fear and dread upon him, and she will torment him with her discipline, until she can trust his soul, and test him with her ordinances. Then she will come straight back to him, and will gladden him, and reveal her secrets to him. If he wanders away, she will forsake him, and hand him over to his ruin. Shame and sin. Watch for a proper opportunity and keep yourself from evil, and do not bring shame upon your soul, for there is a shame that brings sin, and there is a shame which is glory and grace. Do not show partiality to someone to your own harm, and do not let your respect for another cause you to fall. Do not withhold a word in time of need, for wisdom is made known by a word, and instruction by a word of the tongue. Do not speak against the truth, and do not be put to shame by your ignorance. Do not be ashamed to confess your sins, and do not exercise force against the current of a river. Do not subject yourself to a foolish man, and do not show partiality to a ruler. Fight to the death for the truth, and the Lord God will fight for you. Do not be rash with your tongue, and sluggish and neglectful in your works. Do not be like a lion in your home, and act in pretense with your servants. Do not let your hand be extended to receive, and shut when you should repay. Chapter 5. God is the Lord. Do not set your heart on your possessions, and do not say, I am independent. Do not follow yourself in your strength, so as to walk in the desires of your heart, and do not say, who will be Lord over me? For the Lord will surely punish you. Do not say, I sinned, so what happened to me? For the Lord is patient. Do not be so confident of atonement, that you add sin to sin, and do not say, his compassion is great. He will atone for the multitude of my sins, for both mercy and wrath come from him, and his anger rests on sinners. Do not delay to turn to the Lord, and do not put it off from day to day, for suddenly the wrath of the Lord will come forth, and in the day of vengeance you will perish. Do not set your heart on dishonest wealth, for it will profit you nothing in the day of distress. Control of the tongue. Do not winnow with every wind, and do not follow every road, for a double-tongued sinner is of such a kind. Be established in your understanding, and let your word be consistent. Be quick to listen, and give your answer with patience. If you have understanding, answer your neighbor, but if not, let your hand be over your mouth. There is glory and dishonor in speech, and a man's tongue may cause him to fall. Do not be called a slanderer, and do not lie in ambush with your tongue, for shame awaits a thief, and a grievous condemnation will come upon a double-tongued man. In a great or in a small matter, do not go wrong. Chapter 6. Do not be an enemy instead of a friend, for a bad name brings shame and disgrace, and a double-tongued sinner is of such a kind. Do not exalt yourself with your own counsel, lest your soul be torn in pieces as by a bull. You will devour your leaves and lose your fruit, and be left like a withered tree. An evil soul will destroy him who possesses it, and make him an object of malignant joy to his enemies. Friendships. Pleasant speech will multiply his friends, and a gracious tongue will multiply many kind greetings. Let those who live at peace with you be many, but let your counselors be 1 in 1,000. If you gain a friend, gain him in testing, and do not be in a hurry to trust him. For there is a friend who is such to his own advantage, but he will not remain beside you in the day of your affliction. There is also a friend who changes into an enemy, and will reveal a quarrel to your disgrace. Again, there is a friend who is a companion at table, but will not stand by you in your day of trouble. Further, when you prosper, he will be like you, and speak boldly to your servants. But if you are brought low, he will be against you, and will hide himself from your presence. Stay away from your enemies, and hold on to your friends. A faithful friend is a strong shelter, and he who finds one finds a treasure. There is nothing that can take the place of a faithful friend, and there is no way to measure his worth. A faithful friend is a medicine of life, and those who fear the Lord will find him. He who fears the Lord guides his friendship rightly, because as he is, so also is his neighbor. Instruction brings wisdom. My son, from your youth up, choose instruction, and you will find wisdom also into old age. Come to her as one who plows and sows, and wait expectantly for her good fruits. For in her work you will labor a little while, then you will quickly eat of her fruit. She is very harsh on the undisciplined, and on the one who lacks the heart to continue with her. She will be like a heavy stone of trial upon him, and he will not delay to throw her off. For wisdom is like her name and is not manifest to many. Listen, my son, and accept my judgment, and do not reject my advice. Put your feet into her fetters and your neck into her collar. Put your shoulder under her and carry her, and do not be angry with her bonds. Come to her with all your soul, and keep her ways with all your strength. Search for her and seek her out, and she will become known to you. And when you become self-controlled, do not let her go. For in the end you will find her rest, and she will turn to you in gladness. Then her fetters will be as a strong protection for you, and her collar a glorious robe. For there is a golden adornment upon her, and her bonds are a blue thread. You will wear her as a glorious robe, and put her on yourself as a crown of exceeding joy. If you are willing, my son, you will be taught, and if you apply yourself, you will be prudent. If you love to listen, you will wait with anticipation, and if you incline your ear, you will be wise. Stand in an assembly of elders, and who is wise, attach yourself to him. Desire to listen to every divine narrative, and do not let proverbs of understanding escape you. If you see a man who has understanding, rise early in the morning, and let your foot wear out the threshold of his door. Set your mind on the ordinances of the Lord, and practice his commandments. He will strengthen your heart continually, and the desire for wisdom will be given to you. Chapter 7. Put away evil acts. Do no evil things, and evil will never overtake you. Stay away from wrongdoing, and it will turn away from you. My son, do not sow on the furrows of wrongdoing, and you will not reap the same things sevenfold. Do not seek authority from a lord, nor the seat of honor from a king. Do not declare yourself righteous before a lord, nor play the wise man before a king. Do not try to be a judge, if you will not be strong enough to remove wrongdoing, lest you respect the presence of the powerful, and compromise your integrity. Do not sin against the population of a city, nor disgrace yourself before the people. Do not repeat your sin, for you will not be unpunished even for one. Do not say, he will look upon the multitude of my gifts, and when I bring an offering to God Most High, he will accept it. Do not be faint-hearted in your prayer, and do not neglect to do alms. Do not laugh at a man who is in bitterness of soul, for there is one who humbles and exalts. Do not devise a lie against your brother, nor do the same against a friend. Do not desire to tell any lie, for the habit of lying never does any good. Do not talk idly in the assembly of the elders, and do not repeat yourself in prayer. Farm and family. Do not hate hard work, especially farming, which was created by the Most High. Do not number yourself among an assembly of sinners. Remember that wrath will not tarry long. Humble yourself greatly, for the punishment of the ungodly is fire and worms. Do not exchange a friend for money, nor a genuine brother for the gold of Ophir. Do not ignore a wise and good wife, for her grace is worth more than gold. Do not mistreat a servant who does his work in truth, nor a hired worker who devotes himself to you. Let your soul love an intelligent servant. Do not deprive him of his freedom. Do have cattle, take care of them, and if they are profitable to you, keep them. Do have children, correct them, and make them obey from their youth. Do have daughters, watch carefully over their chastity, and do not be too easy on them. Give a daughter in marriage, and you will have completed a great work, but give her to a man of understanding. Do have a wife after your own heart. Do not reject her, but do not trust yourself to a wife whom you disregard. Honor your father with all your heart, and do not forget the birth pangs of your mother. Remember that you were begotten through them, and what can you give back to them? To the degree they gave to you. The priests and the poor. Fear the Lord with all your soul, and honor his priests. Love him who made you, and do not forsake his ministers. Fear the Lord and honor his priests, and give them their portion as commanded. The firstfruits, the trespass offering, the gift of the shoulder offering, the sacrifice of sanctification, and the firstfruits of the holy things. Stretch forth your hand to the poor, that your blessing may be complete. Let the kindness of giving be shown, in the presence of all the living, and do not withhold kindness from the dead. Do not withdraw yourself from those who weep, and mourn with those who mourn. Do not hesitate to visit a sick man, for by such visits you will be loved. With all your words, remember the time you will die, and you will never sin. Chapter 8. Kings and commoners. Do not contend sharply with a powerful man, lest you fall into his hands. Do not quarrel with a rich man, lest he resist your force, for gold has destroyed many, and perverted the hearts of kings. Do not contend sharply with a talkative man, and do not heap wood on his fire. Do not jest with an uncultivated man, lest your forefathers be insulted. Do not insult a man who turns away from sin. Remember that we are all valuable. Do not dishonor a man in his old age, for some of us are growing old as well. Do not rejoice over any dead person. Remember that we all must die. Do not disregard a saying of the wise, but be conversant with their proverbs, because from them you will gain instruction, and how to serve noble people. Do not miss a saying of the old, for they themselves learned from their fathers, because from them you will gain understanding, and be able to give an answer in time of need. Do not kindle the coals of a sinner, for you may be burned by his flame. Do not let the presence of an insolent man arouse you from your seat, lest he lie in wait as an ambush against your words. Do not lend to a man stronger than you, but if you do, consider it lost. Do not give surety beyond your ability to pay, but if you do give surety, be as careful as one who has to pay. Do not go to law against a judge, for they will decide for him because of his reputation. Do not travel on a journey with a reckless man, lest he weigh you down, for he will do his will, and you will perish with him in his folly. Do not cause a fight with an angry man, and do not go into a lonely place with him, because murder is as nothing in his eyes, and where there is no help, he will strike you down. Do not consult with a fool, for he will not keep a matter confidential. Do nothing confidential in the presence of a stranger, for you do not know what he will give birth to. Do not open your heart to everyone, lest unkindness be shown to you. Chapter 9. Behavior with women. Do not be jealous of the wife of your bosom, and so teach her an evil lesson about yourself. Do not give your soul to a woman, to let her trample on your strength. Do not meet with a woman who is a courtesan, lest you fall into her snares. Do not associate with a dancing girl, lest you be caught in her schemes. Do not gaze at a virgin, lest you stumble and pay damages for her. Do not give your soul to prostitutes, lest you destroy your inheritance. Do not look around in the streets of a city, and do not wander about in its deserted sections. Turn your eye away from a woman with a shapely figure, and do not gaze at beauty belonging to another. Many have been led astray by the beauty of a woman, and erotic love is like a burning fire. Never dine with another man's wife, and do not share in parties with her over wine, lest your soul turn aside to her, and you slip and with your spirit fall into destruction. Friends and neighbors, do not forsake an old friend, for a new one is not equal with him. A new friend is like new wine. Drink it with pleasure only after it ages. Do not envy the honor given a sinner, for you do not know what his end will be. Do not delight in the pleasure of the ungodly. Remember, they will not be declared righteous even in Hades. Keep far away from a man who has the power to kill, and you will not be anxious about the fear of death. But if you come near him, do not offend him, lest he take away your life. Know that you are stepping in the midst of snares, and walking about the battlements of a city. Evaluate your neighbors as best you can, and consult with those who are wise. Let your reasoning be with those who are wise, and let all your talk be about the law of the Most High. Let righteous men be your dinner companions, and let your boasting be in the fear of the Lord. Wise leaders. A work will be praised for the skill of its craftsmen, and a wise leader of people for the skill of his words. A talkative man is regarded with fear in his city, and a man who is reckless in his speech will be hated. Chapter 10. A wise leader will educate his people, and the rule of an intelligent man will be well ordered. As goes the leader of a people, so also are his officials, and all the inhabitants of a city will reflect its ruler. An undisciplined king will ruin his people, but a city will be made habitable through the wisdom of its rulers. The authority of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and he will raise up the right man for an appointed time. The success of a man is in the hand of the Lord, and he confers his honor upon the person of the scribe. Do not cherish anger against your neighbor for any injury, and do nothing by acts of insolence. Beware of arrogance. Arrogance is hateful before God and man, and wrongdoing is offensive to both. Dominion is transferred from nation to nation, because of wrongdoing, insolence, and wealth. How can he who is earth and ashes be arrogant? Because even while living, his insides are decaying. A physician scoffs at a long illness, and a king today will also die tomorrow. When a man dies, he will inherit reptiles, wild animals, and worms. The beginning of a man's arrogance is to depart from the Lord, for his heart withdraws from the one who created him. For the beginning of arrogance is sin, and he who takes hold of it will pour out an abomination. Therefore the Lord will bring them extraordinary distress, and completely destroy them. The Lord pulls down the thrones of rulers, and seats the gentle in their place. The Lord plucks out the roots of nations, and plants the humble in their place. The Lord overthrows the lands of the nations, and destroys them to the foundations of the earth. He removes some of them and destroys them, and puts an end to their memory on the earth. Arrogance was not created by mankind, nor fierce anger by the offspring of women. Honor and dishonor. What kind of seed is honored? The seed of man. What kind of seed is honored? Those who fear the Lord. What kind of seed is dishonored? The seed of man. What kind of seed is dishonored? Those who transgress the commandments. Among brothers their leader is honored, and those who fear the Lord are honored in his eyes. The fear of the Lord goes before the obtaining of authority, but roughness and pride is the losing thereof. The rich and the honored and the poor alike, their boasting is the fear of the Lord. It is not right to dishonor an intelligent poor man, nor is it proper to honor a sinful man. The nobleman, the judge, and the ruler will be honored, but none of them is greater than the one who fears the Lord. Free men will render service to a wise servant, and an understanding man will not grumble. Do not put your wisdom on display when you do your work, nor magnify yourself in the time of your trouble. Better is he who works and has plenty, than he who magnifies himself but has no bread. My son, honor your soul with gentleness, and give it honor according to its worth. Who will declare righteous the man who sins against his soul, and who will honor the man who dishonors his life? A poor man is honored for his knowledge, while a rich man is honored for his wealth. If a man is honored in poverty, how much more in wealth? And if a man is dishonored in wealth, how much more in poverty? Chapter 11. The wisdom of a humble man will exalt his head, and he will take his seat among the great. Outward appearances. Do not praise a man for his good looks, and do not detest one because of his appearance. The bee is small among winged creatures, but her fruit is first among sweet things. Do not boast about your fine clothes, nor magnify yourself in the day you are honored, because the works of the Lord are wondrous, and his works are hidden from men. Many tyrants have sat on the ground, but one never thought of his worn a crown. Many rulers have suffered exceeding disgrace, and honored men have been betrayed into the hands of others. Slow down. Do not find fault before you examine a situation. First, understand it, and then make your judgment. Do not answer before you have listened, and do not interrupt someone while he is talking. Do not argue about a matter that does not concern you, and do not sit together with sinners when they judge a case. My son, do not let your business involve too many things. If you multiply them, you will not remain unpunished, and if you pursue them, you will not overtake them, and you will not escape by running away. There is a man who works, and keeps on working, but is in much more poverty. There is another who is sluggish and in need of help, and he lacks strength and abounds in poverty. But the eyes of the Lord look upon him for his good, and restores his well-being from his humble state. He raises up his head, and many are amazed at this. Handling riches, good and bad, life and death, poverty and wealth, these are from the Lord. The gift of the Lord remains with the godly, and his approval brings prosperity forever. There is a man who grows rich, because of his attention and restraint, and this is the portion of his reward. When he says, I have found rest, and now I will partake of my good things, yet he does not know how much time will pass until he will die, and leave them behind to others. Stand by your covenant and attend to it, and grow old in your work. Do not be amazed at the works of a sinner, but trust in the Lord and remain at your work, because it is easy in the sight of the Lord to make a poor man rich quickly and unexpectedly. The blessing of the Lord is in the reward of a godly man, and in an instant he makes his blessings flourish. Do not say, what do I need, and what good things will be mine in the future? Do not say, I am independent. From now on, what will harm me? In the day of good things, there is forgetfulness of bad things, and in the day of bad things, there is no remembrance of good things. For it is easy in the judgment of the Lord to reward a man on the day of his death according to his ways. The ill treatment of an hour makes one forget luxury, and at the end of a man's life, there shall be a revelation of his works. Consider no man happy before his death, and a man will be known in his children. Beware of evildoers. Do not bring every man into your home, for the plots of the deceitful are many. The heart of an arrogant man is like a decoy partridge in a cage, and like a spy he watches for your fall. For he lies in wait and turns good into evil, and he will attach blame to the good one chooses. From a spark of fire a charcoal fire is kindled, and a sinful man lies in wait for bloodshed. Beware of an evildoer and his schemes, lest he bring lasting blame upon you. Receive a stranger into your home, and he will upset you with troubles, and alienate your family from you. Chapter 12. Showing kindness. If you show kindness, know to whom you show it, and you shall be thanked for your good deeds. Do good to a godly man, and you will be repaid. If not by him, then certainly by the Most High. There shall be no good things for him who continues in evil things, or for him who does not give alms cheerfully. Give to a godly man, but do not help the sinner. Do good to a humble man, but do not give to an ungodly man. Hold back his bread and do not give it to him, lest by it he lord it over you. For you will receive twice as much evil coming back, for all the good you did for him. For the Most High also hates sinners, and will render punishment on the ungodly. Never trust an enemy. Give to the good man, but do not help the sinner. A friend will not be revealed when you are prosperous, nor will an enemy hide himself when you are in adversity. When a man prospers, his enemies are grieved, but when he is in adversity, even a friend will separate himself. Never trust your enemy, for as copper becomes rusty, so is his evil. Even if he acts humble and goes about with a humble posture, watch yourself and be on your guard. Then you shall be to him like him who wipes off a mirror, and you will know that it is not corroded continually. Do not let him stand by your side, lest he overthrow you and take your place. Do not seat him on your right, lest he seek your seat of honor. Then at last you will know the truth of my words, and because of my words you will be pierced with sorrow. Who will pity a snake charmer when he is bitten, or those who go near wild animals? So no one will pity one who approaches a sinful man, and gets involved in his sins. He will stay with you for a while, but if you turn aside from him, he will not put up with you. An enemy speaks sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he will plan to throw you into a pit. An enemy will shed tears, but if he finds an opportunity, he will not be satisfied apart from shedding your blood. If evil comes upon you, you will find your enemy there ahead of you, and as he pretends to help you, he will pull your feet from under you. He will shake his head and applaud with his hands, and he will whisper many things and alter his expression. Chapter 13. Choosing colleagues. Whoever touches pitch will be stained, and whoever associates with an arrogant man will become like him. Do not lift a weight too heavy for you, nor associate with a man stronger and richer than you. For the clay pot will strike against the kettle and will itself be broken. A rich man does wrong and even proves himself to be the one wronged. A poor man is wronged, and he must apologize. If you can be useful to him, a rich man will make use of you. But if you are in need, he will abandon you. If you own anything, he will live with you, and he will exhaust you, but will not feel sorry for you. When he needs you, he will deceive you and smile at you, and he will give you hope and say good things to you. He will even say, "What do you need?" He will shame you with his foods, until he exhausts you 2 or 3 times. Then at last he will mock you. If he should see you after this, he will forsake you, and shake his head over you. Take heed, lest you be led astray, and be humiliated in your folly. When a ruler invites you, be slow to accept, and he will invite you more often. Do not press upon him, lest you be rejected, but do not withdraw at a distance, lest you be forgotten. Do not intend to speak to him as an equal, and do not trust his abundance of words, for he will test you with a lot of talk, and while he is smiling, he will scrutinize you. He who does not guard your words is unmerciful, and he will not hesitate to harm or imprison you. Keep your words to yourself, and be very careful, for you are walking near your own fall. Like attracts like, every living creature loves its like, and every man his neighbor. All flesh gathers together by species, and every man clings to one like himself. What wolf will associate with a lamb? No more will the sinner with a godly man. What peace is there between a hyena and a dog? And what peace does a rich man have with a poor man? The prey of lions are wild asses in the wilderness. Similarly, the pastures of the rich are the poor. Rich and poor, lowness of stature is an abomination to the arrogant. Thus a poor man is an abomination to a rich man. When a rich man is shaken, he is strengthened by friends. But when a humble man falls, he is pushed away by friends. When a rich man falls, there are many to help him. And when he speaks abominable words, they justify him. If a humble man falls, they criticize him further. And when he speaks with intelligence, no place is given to him. When a rich man speaks, everyone is silent, and they exalt his word to the clouds. A poor man speaks, and they say, "Who is this man?" And if he stumbles, they push him down even further. Wealth in which there is no sin is good, but poverty is evil in the mouth of an ungodly man. The heart of a man changes the expression on his face, either for good or for evil. The mark of a heart filled with goodness is a cheerful face, but the invention of proverbs requires laborious reasoning. Chapter 14. Blessed is a man who does not slip and fall because of his mouth, and is not stung with pain caused by his sin. Blessed is he whose soul does not condemn him, and who has not fallen away from his hope. Wealth is not fitting for a small-minded man, and to what end is wealth for an envious man? For he who gathers for himself, gathers for others, and others will live in luxury with his goods. If a man does evil to himself, for whom shall he do good? And he will not rejoice in his wealth. Warnings of vices. When a man envies himself, there is no one worse off, and this is the reward for his vice. Even if he does good, he does it unintentionally, and in the end he reveals his vice. He who envies with his eye is evil. He turns away his face and despises souls. The eye of a greedy man is not satisfied with his share, and useless wrongdoing dries up the soul. The evil eye of a man is envious over his bread, thus it is lacking at his table. My son, whatever you have, treat yourself well, and offer sacrifices worthily to the Lord. Remember that death does not delay, and the covenant of Hades has not been shown to you. Before you die, do good to a friend, and reach out and give to him based on your ability. Do not let a day go by without doing something good, and do not let any of your desire for doing good escape you. Will you not leave all your hard work to another, and all your hard work to be divided by lot? Give and receive and deprive yourself, because in Hades there is nowhere to seek luxury. All flesh becomes old like a garment, for the covenant from of old is, you shall die by death. Like flourishing leaves on a thick tree, which sheds some leaves and puts forth others, so also is the generation of flesh and blood. One dies and another is born. Every work of man decays and fails, and he who made it will depart with it. The blessings of wisdom. Blessed is the man who practices wisdom, and discourses with insight. Whoever ponders the ways of wisdom in his heart, will also reflect on her secrets. Pursue wisdom like a tracker, and lie in wait on her paths. He who looks intently through her windows, will also listen at her doors. He who lodges near her house will also fasten his tent peg to her walls. He will establish his home according to her will, and so lodge in a good dwelling place. He will put his children in her shelter, and lodge under her branches. He will be sheltered by her from the burning heat, and will dwell in her glory. Chapter 15. He who fears the Lord will do this, and he who holds fast to the law will obtain wisdom. She will come to meet him like a mother, and accept him like the wife of one's youth. She will feed him the bread of understanding, and give him the water of wisdom to drink. He will be supported by her and not fall, and he will hold on to her and not be put to shame. She will exalt him alongside his neighbors, and in the midst of the assembly she will open his mouth. He will find gladness and the crown of rejoicing, and will inherit an everlasting name. But foolish men will not find her, and sinful men will not see her. She is far from the arrogant, and lying men will not keep her in mind. Praise is not proper in the mouth of a sinner, because it was not sent from the Lord. For praise should be spoken in wisdom. Then the Lord will prosper it. Our sin is our fault. Do not say, I fell away because of the Lord, for he will not do what he hates. Do not say, it was he who led me astray, for he has no need of a sinful man. The Lord hates all abominations, and they are not loved by those who fear him. He himself created man in the beginning, and left him in the counsel of his will. If you will keep the commandments, and faithfully do his good pleasure. He has set before you fire and water. If you will, stretch forth your hand. Life and death are before mankind, and whichever he chooses, it will be given to him. For great is the wisdom of the Lord. He is mighty in power and sees all things. His eyes are upon those who fear him, and he himself knows every deed of man. He has commanded no one to be ungodly, and he has given no one license to sin. Chapter 16. Ungodly children. Do not desire a multitude of useless children, nor rejoice in ungodly sons. If they multiply, do not rejoice over them. If the fear of the Lord is not in them, do not trust in their life, nor pay attention to their multitude. For one godly child is better than 1,000, and it is better to die childless than to have ungodly children. For from one child with wisdom a city will be filled with people, but a tribe of lawless men will make it desolate. My eyes have seen many such things, and my ear has heard worse things than this. Rebuke and mercy. In the congregation of sinners, a fire will be kindled, and in a disobedient nation, wrath is kindled. There was no atonement for the ancient giants, who turned away from God because of their strength. He did not spare the cities where Lot sojourned, whom he detested because of their arrogance. He had no mercy on a nation destined for destruction, who were taken away because of their sins. The same thing happened to the 600,000 foot soldiers, who gathered together in their hardness of heart. Even if there was only one stiff-necked man, it would be a marvel if he were to remain unpunished. For mercy and wrath belong to the Lord, and he is mighty to forgive, and he pours out wrath. As great as his mercy, so also great is his rebuke. And he will judge a man according to his works. A sinner will not escape with his spoils, and the patience of a godly man will not fare badly. He will make a place for every act of mercy. Each will find this out according to his works. None remain anonymous. Do not say, I will be hidden from the Lord, and who will remember me from on high? I will not be known among so many people. For what is my soul in comparison to the immeasurable creation? Behold, heaven and the highest heaven, the abyss and the earth will be shaken at his visitation. At the same time, the mountains and the foundations of the earth will shake with trembling when he looks upon them. No heart will able to think about these things, and who will ponder his ways? There will be a sudden blast of wind which no man will see, for most of his works will be done in secret. Who will proclaim his works of righteousness, or who will endure them? For his covenant is far off. This is what a man thinks, who is diminished in heart and without discernment, who is deceived and thinks foolishly. Listen to me, my son, and gain knowledge, and pay close attention to my words in your heart. I will reveal instruction with balance, and I will proclaim knowledge with exactness. The majesty of creation. By the judgment of the Lord, his works exist from the beginning, and from their creation, he determined their boundaries. He ordered his works forever, and their principles according to their generations. They neither hunger nor grow weary, and they do not cease from their works. Each does not afflict the one close to him, and they will never disobey his word. After this the Lord looked upon the earth, and filled it with his good things. He covered its surface with the life of every living creature, and to it they will return again. Chapter 17. Creation of man. The Lord created man from the earth, and returned him to it again. He gave them a certain number of days and an appointed time, and he gave them authority over it. He clothed them in strength like his own, and made them in his image. He put the fear of man upon all flesh, and gave him dominion over wild animals and birds. He gave mankind the ability to deliberate, and a tongue, eyes and ears, and a heart to think with. He filled them with the skill of comprehension, and showed them good and evil. He set his eye upon their hearts, to show them the majesty of his works. They will praise his holy name, so as to fully describe the majesty of his works. The covenant with Israel. He added knowledge to them, and gave them the law of life as a heritage. He established an eternal covenant with them, and he showed his judgments to them. Their eyes saw his glorious majesty, and their ears heard his glorious voice. He said to them, Beware of all unrighteousness. And he commanded each of them concerning his neighbor. Their ways are before him continually. They will not be hidden from his eyes. He appointed a ruler for every nation. But Israel is the Lord's portion. All his works are as the sun before him, and his eyes are continually on their ways. Their wrongdoings are not hidden from him, and all their sins are before the Lord. A man's almsgiving is like a seal with him, and he will treasure the kindness of a man like the pupil of his eye. After this he will arise and repay them, and he will reward them with retribution on their head. But he provides a return to those who repent, and he comforts those who lack endurance. Return to the Lord, turn to the Lord and forsake your sins, and pray in his presence and reduce your offense. Return to the Most High and turn away from wrongdoing, and hate an abomination exceedingly. Who will praise the Most High in Hades, as do the living and those who give thanks. Thanksgiving ceases from a dead man since he is no longer alive. Only the living and the healthy will praise the Lord. How great the mercy of the Lord is, and his atonement for those who turn to him. For all things are not possible for man, because a son of man is not immortal. What shines brighter than the sun? Yet this light fails, and so will flesh and blood when it lays evil to heart. He examines the host of the highest heaven, but all men are earth and ashes. Chapter 18. A Song of God's Mercy. He who lives forever created everything. The Lord alone will be declared righteous. He permitted no one to proclaim his works, for who can trace out his mighty works? Who will measure his majestic power with a number, and who will add to this measure, while describing his mercies? There is no one who can add or subtract, and there is no who can search out the wonders of the Lord. When a man completes his search, then he starts over, and when he stops, he will still be perplexed. What is man and what use is he? What is his good and what is his evil? The number of a man's days is considered great, if he is 100 years old. But like a drop of water from the sea and a grain of sand, so are a few years within a day of eternity. Therefore the Lord is patient with them, and pours out his mercy upon them. He sees and knows their end, that it is evil. Therefore he makes full atonement for them. The mercy of a man is upon his neighbor, but the mercy of the Lord is upon all flesh, rebuking, training, and teaching them, like a shepherd who returns his flock to the fold. He has mercy on those who receive his discipline, and who are eager for his judgments. Take care to be wise. My son, do not bring disgrace on the good you have done, nor cause grief by your words when you make a gift. Does not do give relief from the burning heat. In the same way, a word is better than a gift. Indeed, is not a word better than a fitting gift? And both are found in a gracious man. A fool will insult and disgrace someone, and the gift of an envious man makes his eyes waste away. Before you speak, learn, and before you get sick, take care of your health. Before you make a judgment, examine yourself closely, and in the hour of visitation you will find atonement. Before you become sick, humble yourself, and at the time of sinning, prove your conversion. Let nothing hinder you from paying a vow promptly, and do not wait until death to become righteous. Before you make a vow, prepare yourself, and do not become like a man who tempts the Lord. Remember his anger on the day of your death, at the time of vengeance, when he turns his face away. Remember the time of hunger in the time of plenty, and poverty and need in the days of wealth. From morning until evening, time changes, and all things are soon in the presence of the Lord. A wise man will have the fear of God in everything he does, and in these days of sin, he will guard against wrongdoing. Every intelligent man knows wisdom, and praises the one who finds her. The wise in words, they also make others wise, and they pour forth accurate proverbs. Self-control. Do not walk after your own desires, but restrain your appetites. If you fill your soul with the desire for pleasure, it will make you the laughingstock of your enemies. Do not rejoice in great luxury, lest you become needy by its expense. Do not become a beggar by feasting on borrowed money, when you have nothing in your purse. Chapter 19. The reckless soul. A working man who is a drunk will not become wealthy, and he who despises small things will fail little by little. Wine and women will draw away intelligent men, and he who joins himself to prostitutes shall become very reckless. Decay and worms will inherit him, and his reckless soul will be carried away. Don't gossip. He who trusts quickly is unwise in heart, and he who sins will err against his own soul. He who rejoices in evil shall be condemned, and he who hates talkativeness will sin less. Never repeat a word and you will lose nothing at all. With friend or enemy, do not report it, and unless it is a sin for you, do not reveal it. For someone heard you and watched you, and in time will hate you. Have you heard a word? Let it die with you. Take courage, it will not burst you. But a fool will suffer birth pangs because of such a word. Like a woman in labor with a child, like an arrow stuck in the flesh of a thigh, so is a word inside a fool. Question a friend, perhaps he did not do it. And if he did something, perhaps he will not repeat it. Question a neighbor, perhaps he did not say it. And if he did say it, may he not say it twice. Question a friend, for often it is slander. So do not believe every word. A person slips, but it was not his intention. For who has not sinned with his tongue? Question your neighbor before you threaten him, and give place to the law of the Most High. The wise and the clever, All wisdom is the fear of the Lord, and in all wisdom there is the doing of the law. Wisdom is not the knowledge of evil, nor is there discernment in the counsel of sinners. There is a cleverness that is an abomination, and there is a fool who is lacking in wisdom. Better is a man who is afraid but lacks understanding, than a man who abounds in discernment but transgresses the law. There is a precise cleverness which itself is unjust, and there is one who is offensive that justice may be revealed. There is an evildoer bowed down in mourning, but inwardly he is full of deceit. He covers his face and pretends to be deaf, but when no one notices, he will take advantage of you. If he is prevented from sinning because he lacks strength, when he later finds an opportunity, he will do evil. A man will be known by his appearance, and a man of intelligence will be known by his countenance when you meet him. The clothing of a man and the way he laughs and walks give indication of who he is. Chapter 20. When to speak. There is a rebuke which is not timely, and there is he who is silent but has discernment. How much better it is to rebuke than to seethe with anger. He who confesses his fault will be kept from loss. Like the desire of a eunuch to violate a maiden, so is the man who executes justice by violence. There is a man who is silent but is found to be wise, and there is a man who is hateful because he talks too much. There is a man who is silent because he has no answer, and there is a man who is silent because he knows when to speak. A wise man will keep silent until it is the right time to speak, but an arrogant and undiscerning man will speak out of turn. The man who talks too much will be detested, and the man who stands on his rights will be hated. Buying and selling. There is prosperity in the midst of adversities, but there is also a sum realized by a sale for a loss. There is a gift that will not profit you, and there is a gift where the repayment is double. There is a loss because of glory, and there is a man who raises his head from a humble state. There is a man who buys much with little, but pays for it sevenfold. A wise man will make himself beloved through his words, but the kindnesses of fools will be forgotten. The gift of a senseless man will not benefit you, for his eyes are many instead of one. He will give little but insult much, and he will open his mouth like a herald. Today he will lend but tomorrow he will demand it back. Such a man is hateful, a man without grace. A fool will say, I have no friend, and I get no thanks for my good deeds. Those who eat my bread are worthless in their speech. How many will laugh scornfully at him, and how often? A slip on the ground is better than a slip of the tongue. Thus the downfall of evil will come speedily. A man without grace is like a story told at the wrong time. It will continue on the lips of the ignorant. A parable from the lips of a fool will be rejected, for he does not tell it at its proper time. Commentary on sinners. There is one who is hindered from sinning because of his poverty. So when he rests, he will not be pierced with sorrow. There is one who may lose his life through shame, or lose it because of his foolish countenance. There is one who makes a promise to a friend because of shame, and needlessly gains him as an enemy. A lie is an evil disgrace in a man. It will continue on the lips of the ignorant. A thief is preferable to a continual liar. Both, however, will inherit destruction. The character of a liar brings dishonor, and his shame is continually with him. Ways of the wise. A wise man will advance himself with his words, and a man with discernment will please great men. A man who works the earth will raise up his harvest, and he who pleases great men will atone for wrongdoing. Presents and gifts blind the eyes of the wise, and like a muzzle on the mouth they turn aside rebukes. Wisdom hidden and unseen treasure. What profit is there in either of them? Better is the man who hides his foolishness, than a man who hides his wisdom. Chapter 21. Flee from sin. My son, have you sinned? No longer add to them, but pray about your former sins. Flee from sin as you would from the presence of a snake, for if you approach it, it will bite you. Its teeth are like lions' teeth, destroying the souls of men. All lawlessness is like a two-edged sword, for there is no healing from its wound. Panic and violence will lay waste to wealth. Likewise, the house of an arrogant man will be laid waste. The prayer of a poor man goes from his mouth to God's ears, and his judgment comes speedily. Whoever hates rebuke walks in the steps of a sinner, but he who fears the Lord will return to him with his heart. A man powerful in speech is known from afar, but an intelligent man knows when he slips. He who builds his house with other people's money is like a man who gathers his stones in a storm. The assembly of the lawless is like a bundle of kindling, whose end is a flame of fire. The way of sinners is paved with stones, but at its end is the pit of Hades. Wise or foolish, he who keeps the law controls his thoughts. The end result of the fear of the Lord is wisdom. He who is not astute cannot be taught, but there is an astuteness that increases bitterness. The knowledge of a wise man is like a flood, and his counsel will flow abundantly as a fountain of life. The inner workings of a fool are like a broken vessel, for he will not hold on to any knowledge. If a man of understanding hears a wise word, he will praise it and add to it. But if a self-indulgent man hears it, it displeases him, and he turns his back on it. The explanation of a fool is like a burden on a journey, but grace will be on the lips of an intelligent man. The utterance of a sensible person will be sought in the assembly, and they will ponder his words in their heart. Like a house that has disappeared, so is wisdom to a fool, and the knowledge of a foolish man is words that will not stand up to examination. To a foolish man, instruction is like chains on the feet, and like handcuffs on the right hand. A fool raises his voice when he laughs, but an astute man will smile quietly with some hesitation. To a wise man instruction is like a golden ornament, and like a bracelet on the right arm. The foot of a fool quickly enters a house, but a man with much experience will stand respectfully outside. A man without discernment peers into a house from the door, but a well-educated man will stand outside. A man shows his lack of education when he listens at the door, but a prudent man will be grieved by this disgrace. The lips of the unwise will describe things in detail, but the words of the prudent will balance the scale. The heart of fools is in their mouth, but the mouth of the wise is in their heart. When an ungodly man curses Satan, he curses his own soul. The whisperer defiles his own soul, and will be hated in his own neighborhood. Chapter 22. A lazy man may be compared to a filthy stone, and everyone hisses at his dishonor. A lazy man may be compared to the filth of manure. Everyone who picks it up will shake it off his hand. A father's disgrace. The disgrace of a father is begetting an undisciplined son, and a foolish daughter is born to his loss. A sensible daughter will bring an inheritance to her husband, but a shameful one is a grief to her father. An arrogant daughter shames both father and husband, and she will be dishonored by both. An ill-timed statement is like mournful music, but the chastising and instruction of wisdom are always timely. The fool, he who teaches a fool is like one who glues pottery together, or like trying to arouse one from a sound sleep. He who tells something to a fool tells it to a drowsy man, and at the end he will say, "What is it?" If children live honestly and have wherewithal, they shall cover the baseness of their parents. But children, being haughty through disdain and want of nurture, stain the nobility of their kindred. Weep for a dead man, for he left the light behind. But weep over a fool, for he left intelligence behind. Weep gladly for a dead man, because he is at rest. But the life of the fool is worse than death. Mourning for a dead man lasts 7 days, but mourning for a fool or an ungodly man lasts all his life. Do not hold a conversation with a fool, and do not visit with a senseless man. Beware of him, so as to avoid trouble, and you will not be defiled when he shakes himself off. Stay away from him, and you will find rest, and not be exhausted by his insanity. What will be heavier than lead, and what will be his name but fool? Sand, salt, and a piece of iron are easier to bear than a senseless man. A wooden beam bound together in a building will not be broken loose in an earthquake. So a heart strengthened by reasonable counsel will not be afraid in a crisis. A heart settled on intelligent thought is like a plaster decoration on a smooth wall. As fences set on a high place will not stand firm against the wind, so a cowardly heart in the thought of a fool cannot stand firm against any kind of fear. Building friendships. He who pokes his eye will cause tears to fall, and he who pierces a heart reveals its feeling. Throwing a rock at birds scares them away, and disgracing a friend will break up a friendship. If you draw a sword against a friend, do not despair, for a restoration of friendship is possible. If you open your mouth against a friend, do not worry, for reconciliation is possible. But as for reviling or arrogance or revealing secrets or a treacherous blow, with behavior like this any friend will flee. Gain your neighbor's trust when he is poor, so you may be fulfilled with him when he prospers. Stand by him in his time of trouble, that when he gets his inheritance, you may share it with him. As the smoke and vapor of a furnace precede a fire, so abuses precede bloodshed. I will not be ashamed to shelter a friend, and I will not hide from his face. If anything bad happens to me because of him, everyone who hears about it will beware of him, who will set a guard over my mouth, and a prudent seal over my lips, that I may not fall because of them, and that my tongue may not destroy me. Chapter 23. A prayer for wisdom. O Lord, Father and Master of my life, do not leave me to their counsel, nor let me fall because of them, who will set whips over my thoughts, and the discipline of wisdom over my heart, so they may not spare me in my errors, nor neglect me in my sins, lest my mistakes be multiplied, and my sins abound. Then I would not fall before my adversaries, and my enemy would not rejoice over me. O Lord, Father and the God of my life, do not give me haughty eyes, but turn me away from evil desire. Do not let gluttony or lust overcome me, nor give me up to a shameless soul. Warning to children. My children, hear the teaching of my mouth, for he who keeps it will not be conquered. A sinner will be overtaken by his lips, and a slanderer and arrogant man will be made to stumble by them. Do not accustom your mouth to vows, nor make a habit of using the name of the Holy One. For as a servant who is continually beaten will not lack bruises, so also he who makes a vow and continually names the Holy One will never be cleansed from sin. A man who swears many oaths will be filled with lawlessness, and that plague will not depart from his house. If he offends, his sin will be on him, and if he overlooks it, he has sinned doubly. If he swears in vain, he will not be declared righteous, for his house will be filled with trouble. There is a way of speaking comparable to death. May it not be found in the inheritance of Jacob. For all these things will be far from the godly, and they will not be involved in sins. Do not accustom your mouth to lewd expressions, for this is sinful speech. Remember your father and mother, when you sit in council with great men, lest you forget yourself in their presence, and by habit act foolishly. Then you will wish you had never been born, and you will curse the day of your birth. A man accustomed to abusive words will never discipline himself as long as he lives. Men of sin. 2 kinds of men multiply sins, and a third kind will bring down wrath. A soul heated like a burning fire will not be quenched until it is consumed. A man whose whole body is given to fornication will not cease until the fire burns out. To a man who is a fornicator, all bread is sweet. He will not grow weary until he dies. The man who transgresses against his marriage bed says to himself, who sees me? Darkness encircles me. The walls of my house hide me, and no one sees me. Why should I be afraid? The Most High will not remember my sins. His fear is the eyes of men. Yet he does not know that the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, and look upon all the ways of men, and observe even the secret places. Before all things were created, everything was known to him, and the end of all things is also known to him. This adulterer will be punished in the city streets, and where he does not suspect it, he will be seized. Women of sin. So also the woman who forsook her husband, and brought in an heir by another man. For she first disobeyed the law of the Most High, and second, she transgressed against her husband, and third, in her fornication she committed adultery, and bore children by a stranger. She will be brought before the assembly, and there shall be a visitation of her children. Her children will not take root, and her branches will not bear fruit. She will leave behind her memory as a curse, and her disgrace will not be blotted out. Those left behind will know there is nothing better than the fear of the Lord, and there is nothing sweeter than to give heed to the Lord's commandments. Chapter 24. In praise of wisdom. Wisdom will praise herself, and in the midst of her people she will boast. In the assembly of the Most High she will open her mouth, and boast in the presence of his host. I came forth from the mouth of the Most High, and covered the earth like a mist. I pitched my tent in the high places, and my throne on the pillar of cloud. I alone encircle the ring of heaven, and I walk in the depth of the abyss, in the waves of the sea, in all the earth, and in every people and nation. I have gained a possession. With all these I have sought a place to rest. In what inheritance will I lodge? Then the Creator of all things commanded me, and he who created me gave me a place to live. He said, pitch your tent in Jacob, and receive an inheritance in Israel. Before the age, he created me from the beginning, and in the age to come I will not cease. I serve before him in his holy tabernacle. Therefore I am established in Zion. In the beloved city likewise he gives me rest, and my authority is in Jerusalem. I am firmly rooted among an honored people, among the Lord's portion, his inheritance. Like a cedar tree I was raised on high in Lebanon, like a cypress tree in the mountains of Hermon. I was exalted like a palm tree in En-Gedi, and like rose bushes in Jericho. I was exalted like a beautiful olive tree in the plain, and grew tall like a plane tree. I gave forth the fragrance of aromatic spices, like cinnamon and camel thorn. And I spread a fragrance like choice myrrh, and like galbanum, onyx, and oil of myrrh, and like the fragrance of frankincense in the tabernacle. I spread forth my branches like a terebinth tree, and my branches were glory and grace. I yield grace like a vine, and my flowers produce the fruit of glory and riches. I am the mother of fair love, and fear, and knowledge, and holy hope. I therefore, being eternal, am given to all my children who are named by him. Come to me, you who desire me, and take your fill of my fruits, for the remembrance of me is sweeter than honey, and my inheritance is sweeter than the honeycomb. Those who eat me will hunger for more, and those who drink me will thirst for more. He who obeys me will not be put to shame, and those who work with me will not sin. All this is the book of the covenant of the Most High God, the law Moses commanded us, the inheritance of the congregations of Jacob. Faint not to be strong in the Lord, that he may confirm you. Cleave unto him. For the Lord Almighty is God alone, and beside him there is no other Savior. This law fills men with wisdom, like the Pishon and the Tigris at the time of firstfruits, and it fills them with understanding, like the Euphrates and the Jordan at the time of harvest. This law shines forth instruction like light, like the Gihon in the days of vintage. As the first man did not know wisdom perfectly, so the last man has not searched out her depths. For her thoughts are deeper than the sea, and her counsel than the great abyss. I went forth like a canal from a river, and like an aqueduct into a garden. I said, I will water my garden, and drench the garden beds. And behold, my canal became a river, and my river became a sea. I will yet make instruction shine like the morning, and I will make it shine far away. I will yet pour forth teaching like prophecy, and I will leave it behind for future generations. As you can see, I have not labored for myself alone, but for all who seek wisdom. Chapter 25. Numbered sayings. There are 3 things beautiful to see, and they are beautiful before the Lord and men: the harmony of brothers, friendship between neighbors, and a wife and husband well adjusted together. My soul hates 3 kinds of men, and I am very offended with their lifestyle: a beggar who is arrogant, a rich man who is a liar, and an old man who is an adulterer and lacks understanding. Wisdom of the aged. If you have gathered nothing in your youth, how can you find anything in your old age? Judgment is like beauty in gray hair, and in elders it is to know counsel. Wisdom is like the beauty of old men, and in those who are glorious it is understanding and counsel. The crown of old men is great experience, for their boast is the fear of the Lord. 10 blessings. In my heart I have blessed 9 suppositions, and I will mention a 10th, a father who delights in his children, a man who lives to see the downfall of his enemies, a husband who is blessed to live with an understanding wife, a man who does not slip with his tongue, a man who has not served a man less worthy than himself, a man who is blessed to find discernment, a man who is blessed to speak to ears that listen, and a man who has found wisdom. How blessed he is! But there is no one greater than a man who fears the Lord. The fear of the Lord is more important than anything. To what will it be compared? An evil wife. Any wound, but not a wound of the heart. Any evil, but not an evil wife. Any misery, but not the misery of those who hate me. Any vengeance, but not the vengeance of enemies. There is no head worse than the head of a snake, and there is no anger worse than the anger of an enemy. I would rather live with a lion or a snake than with an evil wife. The evil of a wife changes her appearance, and darkens her face like that of a bear. Her husband will go to his neighbors for meals, and he sighs bitterly and involuntarily. Any evil is small compared to the evil of a wife. May the portion of a sinner fall upon her, a sandy hill of ascent for the feet of an old man. Such is an overly talkative wife to a quiet husband. Do not fall for the beauty of a woman, and do not long for her beauty. There is wrath, insolence, and great shame when a wife supports her husband. A downcast heart, a sad face, and a wounded heart are caused by an evil wife. Drooping hands and weakened knees are caused by a wife who does not make her husband happy. Sin had its beginning from a wife, and because of her we all die. Do not give water an outlet, nor boldness to an evil wife. If she does not follow your good leadership, cut her off from yourself. Chapter 26. A good wife. Happy is the husband of a good wife. The number of his days will be doubled. A courageous wife makes her husband glad, and his years will be full of peace. A good wife is a good portion, and she will be given in the portion of those who fear the Lord. The good heart of a rich or a poor man is a cheerful face at all times. Fallen womanhood. My heart fears because of 3 things, and I pray to God concerning a 4th. The slander of a city, the gathering of a mob, and a false accusation. All these are worse than death. There is also pain of heart and sorrow when a wife is jealous over another woman, and a tongue lashing makes it known to all. An evil wife is like an ox yoke that shakes to and fro, and to take hold of her is like grabbing a scorpion. A drunken wife is very wrathful, and she will not conceal her shame. The fornication of a wife will be known by her haughty looks and her eyelids. Keep strong watch over a headstrong daughter, lest she find some liberty and make the most of it. Be on guard against her shameless eye, and do not be amazed if she trespasses against you. Her mouth will open like a thirsty traveler's, and drink from any water nearby. She will sit down before every tent peg, and open her quiver to any arrow. A blessed wife. A wife's grace will delight her husband, and her skill will put fat on his bones. A silent wife is a gift from the Lord, and there is nothing worth as much as a disciplined soul. A modest wife is blessing upon blessing, and there is no scale adequate to weigh a self-controlled soul. Like the sun rising in the Lord's heaven is the beauty of a good wife in the ordering of her house. Like a lamp shining on the holy lampstand is the beauty of a countenance in the prime of life. Beautiful feet with a steady heart are like golden pillars on a silver base. 3 griefs. My heart is grieved by 2 things, and because of a 3rd, anger arises within me. A man of war and want because of poverty, men of intelligence who suffer contempt, and a man who turns back from righteousness to sin. The Lord will prepare this one for the sword. The merchant. With difficulty a merchant will deliver himself from wrongdoing, and a peddler will not be acquitted from sin. Chapter 27. Many have sinned to make a profit, and he who seeks riches will turn away his eyes. As a stake will be driven tightly between fitted stones, so sin will be wedged between selling and buying. If a man does not hold steadfastly to the fear of the Lord, his house will be soon overturned. Tested by reason. When a sieve is shaken, the refuse remains. So a man's filth remains in the way he reasons. As a furnace tests a potter's vessels, so the test of a man is in the way he reasons. As fruit reveals how a tree is cultivated, so a man's reasoning process reveals his heart. Do not praise a man before he reveals the way he reasons, for this is the way a man is tested. If you pursue righteousness, you will attain it, and put it on like a glorious robe. As birds flock with their own kind, so also truth will return to those who practice it. As a lion lies in wait for his prey, so sin lies in wait for those who do wrong. Speaking wisely. The talk of a godly man is always wise, but a fool changes like the moon. Among senseless men, limit your time. Instead, spend it with men of understanding. The talk of fools is offensive, and they laugh at the lewdness of sin. Speech filled with swearing will make one's hair stand on end, and quarreling will make one stop his ears. The quarreling of the arrogant leads to bloodshed, and their abusive language is hard on the ears. He who reveals secrets destroys his credibility, and he will not find a friend for life. Love your friend, and be trustworthy with him. But if you reveal his secrets, do not pursue him closely. For as surely as a man has destroyed his enemy, so you have destroyed the friendship of your neighbor. As you might release a bird from your hand, so you have let your neighbor go, and you will not catch him. Do not pursue him, for he has withdrawn far away. and has escaped like a deer from a snare. For a wound can be bandaged and an insult forgiven, but anyone who reveals secrets is without hope. He who winks with his eye plots evil deeds, and no one can draw him away from them. His speech will be sweet in your presence, and he will marvel at your words. But later his speech will distort what you said, and he will cause trouble with your words. I hate many things, but none in comparison to him, and the Lord will hate him. Consequences of sin. He who throws a stone into the air, throws it on his head, and a treacherous blow will distribute wounds. He who digs a pit will fall into it, and he who sets a snare will be caught in it. He who does evil things will have it roll back on him, and he will not know what hit him. Mockery and abuse come back on an arrogant man, and vengeance lies in wait for him like a lion. Those who rejoice at the fall of the godly will be caught in a trap, and pain will consume them before their death. Anger and wrath, these are also abominations, and a sinful man shall possess both. Chapter 28. He who seeks revenge will find it from the Lord, and he will surely punish his sins. Showing mercy, forgive a wrong done you by your neighbor, then your sins will be pardoned when you pray. Can a man preserve wrath against his neighbor, and still seek healing from the Lord? Can he show no mercy toward a man like himself, and still beg God for mercy for himself? If he being flesh keeps his anger continually, who will atone for his sins? Remember the end of your life, and cease from enmity. Remember destruction and death, and stand fast in the commandments. Remember the commandments, and do not vent your wrath against your neighbor. Remember the covenant of the Most High, and overlook faults. Cease quarreling and evil talk. Refrain from quarreling and you will decrease your sins. For a man who is hot-tempered will kindle quarreling. A sinful man will trouble his friends, and among those who live in peace he will inject unfriendliness. The heat of a fire will be kindled according to the amount of wood. So also the heat of a fire will be kindled according to the obstinacy of quarreling. According to the strength of a man, so his anger shall be, and according to his wealth, he will increase his wrath. A hasty quarrel kindles a fire, and a vigorous quarrel sheds blood. If you blow on a spark, it will kindle a fire, but if you spit on it, it will be quenched. Yet both come out of your mouth. Curse a slanderous and deceitful man, for he has destroyed many who were at peace. Slander has unsettled many, and scattered them from nation to nation, and it has destroyed strong cities, and overturned the houses of great men. Slander has driven away courageous women, and robbed them of their labors. He who devotes himself to slander will not find rest, nor shall he dwell in quietness. The blow from a whip causes a wound, but a blow from the tongue breaks bones. Many have fallen by the edge of the sword, but not so many as those who have fallen because of the tongue. Blessed is the man who is sheltered from it, who has not passed through the anger of the tongue, who does not drag its yoke, and is not bound by its chains. For its yoke is a yoke of iron, and its chains are chains of bronze. Its death is an evil death, and Hades is preferable to it. An evil tongue will not prevail over the godly, and they will not be burned in its flame. Those who forsake the Lord will fall into it, and among them it will be kindled, and it will not be quenched. It will set upon them like a lion, and like a leopard it will mangle them. See that you fence in your possessions with thorns. Lock up your silver and gold. Make balances and scales for your words, and bar and bolt the door of your mouth. Beware lest you make a slip with your tongue, lest you fall victim before him who lies in wait. Chapter 29. Loans and gifts. He who shows mercy will lend to his neighbor, and he who makes him strong with a helping hand keeps the commandments. Lend to your neighbor in the time of his need, and when you borrow, repay your neighbor on time. Keep your word and be trustworthy with him, and on every occasion you will find what you need. Many men, supposing a loan is like a windfall, cause trouble to those who help them. He will kiss the lender's hand until he receives the loan, and to get his neighbor's money he will lower his voice. But at the time of repayment, he will put it off, and repay only with words of indifference, and blame the times. If the lender is firm with him, he will barely get back half the loan, and will consider it as a windfall. If the borrower does not repay anything, he has robbed him of his money, and needlessly made him an enemy. The lender will then repay him with curses and insults, and dishonor instead of glory. Many men, not because they are evil, have refused to lend. They have become afraid of being needlessly robbed. However, be patient with a man of humble circumstances, and do not keep him waiting for your alms. Because of the commandment, help a poor man, and in his need, do not turn him away empty. Lose your money for the sake of a brother and friend. Do not let it rust under a stone and be lost. Lay up your treasure according to the commandments of the Most High, for this will profit you more than gold. Store alms in your storerooms, and they will deliver you from all affliction. More than a mighty shield and better than a strong spear. Almsgiving will fight for you against your enemy. A good man will go surety for his neighbor, but a man who has lost his sense of shame will forsake him. Do not forget the kindness his surety has done for you, for he has given his life for you. A sinner will overthrow the good things of his surety, and the ungrateful man will forsake his deliverer on purpose. Suretyship has destroyed many prosperous men, and tossed them about like waves of the sea. Suretyship has driven influential men from their homes, and they have wandered among foreign nations. The sinner who chances upon suretyship, and the man who pursues profit-taking will fall into judgment. Help your neighbor according to your ability. But watch out for yourself lest you fall. The principle of life is water, bread, and clothing, and a house that offers privacy. The life of a poor man under a shelter of logs is better than great food in another man's house. Be content with little or much, and you will not hear your guest insulted. Going from house to house is a bad way to live, and where you are visiting, you dare not open your mouth. You will entertain guests and give drink to the ungrateful, and besides this you will hear bitter words. Come here, stranger, set the table, and if you have any food at hand, feed me. Get out, stranger, somebody more important is here. My brother has come as my guest. I need my house. These things are hard for a sensible man to take. The rebuke of a household and the abuse of a creditor. Chapter 30. Raising children. The man who loves his son will chastise him often, so he may rejoice in him in his later years. He who disciplines his son will profit by him, and boast of him among acquaintances. The man who teaches his son will make his enemy jealous, and will rejoice exceedingly over him among friends. When his father dies, it is as though he is not dead, for he left behind one like himself. While he lived, he saw and rejoiced in him, and when he died, he was not grieved. Before his enemies, he left behind an avenger, and to his friends one who repays favors. He who spoils his son will bandage his wounds, and at every cry his heart will ache. A horse not broken turns out to be stubborn, and a son allowed to run wild turns out to be headstrong. Tamper a child, and he will frighten you. Play with him, and he will grieve you. Do not laugh with him, lest you suffer with him, and gnash your teeth over him at last. Do not give him authority while he is young. Bruise his ribs when he is young, lest he become stubborn and disobey you. Discipline your son and work with him, so he will not embarrass you with his behavior. Good health. A poor man with good health is better off than a rich man afflicted in his body. Health and vigor are better than all gold, and a strong body than immense wealth. There are no riches greater than health of body, and there is no gladness above joy of heart. Death is better than a wretched life, and eternal rest is better than chronic sickness. Good things set out before a closed mouth are like offerings of food put on a grave. What use is an offering of fruit to an idol? For it can neither eat nor smell. So is a man afflicted by the Lord. He sees with his eyes and groans, like a eunuch embracing a virgin. Gladness of heart. Do not give yourself over to sorrow, and do not distress yourself deliberately. Gladness of the heart is the life of man, and rejoicing by a man lengthens his life. Love your soul and comfort your heart, and put sorrow far away from you, for sorrow has destroyed many, and there is no profit in it. Envy and anger will shorten your days, and worry will bring premature old age. A man with a good and cheerful heart will pay attention to the food he eats. Chapter 31. Be wise with wealth. Losing sleep over wealth wastes away the body, and anxiety about wealth removes sleep. Sleepless anxiety will drive away slumber, and severe illness makes an end to sleep. A rich man labors to gather money, and when he rests he fills himself with his luxuries. A poor man labors to make a meager living, and when he rests he becomes needy. He who loves gold will not be called righteous, and he who pursues profit will be led astray by it. Many are driven to calamity for the sake of gold, and their destruction has met them face to face. It is a stumbling block for those possessed by it, and every senseless man will be trapped by it. Blessed is a rich man who is found blameless, and does not chase after gold. Who is he? And we shall call him blessed, for he has worked wonders among his people, who has been tested by it and found perfect. He has ground for boasting, who was able to transgress but did not transgress, who was able to commit evil but did not do it. His good things will be strengthened, and the assembly will talk of his almsgiving. Food and drink. Are you seated at table with a great man? Do not gluttonize, and do not say, how much food there is upon your table. Remember that a greedy eye is a vice. What has been created worse than the eye? Therefore it sheds tears on every face. Do not stretch out your hand for everything you see, and do not crowd another at the dish. Understand the things of your neighbor by your own, and in every matter be considerate. Eat what is set before you like a human being, and do not devour your food, lest you be despised. Be the first to stop eating for the sake of discipline, and do not be greedy so as not to cause offense. And if you are seated in a large group of people, do not reach out your hand before they do. How small an amount is sufficient for a man with discipline, and he does not gasp for breath on his bed. Healthy sleep depends on moderate eating, and he rises early and in good spirits. But the distress of sleeplessness, nausea, and indigestion are with the glutton. If you are stuffed with food, get up in the middle of the meal and stop eating. Listen to me, my child, and do not disregard me, and you will find my words to be important. In all your works be prepared, and no sickness will overtake you. Lips will bless a man generous with his food, and their witness to his goodness is trustworthy. A city will grumble against the man stingy with his food, and their witness to his stinginess is accurate. Do not get your courage from wine, for wine has destroyed many men. As a furnace tests steel in the tempering process, so wine tests hearts in the quarrels of the arrogant. Wine is like life to men, if you drink it in moderation. What is life without wine? For it was created to give gladness to men. Wine drunk at the proper time and with temperance is joyfulness of heart and gladness of soul. Drinking too much wine is bitterness of soul. with irritation and occasion for stumbling and falling. Drunkenness increases the anger of a senseless man to his own hurt, reducing his strength and adding to his wounds. Do not rebuke your neighbor at a wine party, and do not despise him when he is enjoying himself. Do not speak a word of insult against him, and do not afflict him by making demands of him. Chapter 32. Hosting a banquet. Did they appoint you as leader of the banquet? Do not exalt yourself. Among them be as one of them. Take care of them and only then be seated. Then having fulfilled all your duties, take your place, that you may make merry for their sake, and receive a crown because of your orderly behavior. Speak, O elder, for this is fitting for you to do so with accurate knowledge. But do not interrupt the music. Where there is entertainment, do not pour out talk, and do not display your cleverness at the wrong time. A concert of music at a banquet of wine is like a seal of ruby in a gold ornament. A seal of emerald in a gold setting is the melody of music with delicious wine. Speak, young man, if there is need of you, but no more than twice, and only if you are asked repeatedly. Be brief, say much in a few words. Act like a man who knows, yet holds his tongue. Among the great do not act as their equal, and when another is speaking, do little talking. Lightning flashes before thunder, and favor goes before a modest man. Rise to leave in good time, and do not lag behind. Run home and do not be remiss. Amuse yourself there, and do what you intend. But do not sin by speaking arrogantly. And for these things, bless him who created you, and satisfies you with his good things. Wise and sinful men. The man who fears the Lord will receive instruction, and those who rise early will find his approval. He who seeks the law will be filled with it, but the hypocrite will be made to stumble by it. Those who fear the Lord will discover judgment, and like the light they will kindle righteous deeds. A sinful man will turn aside correction, and find a rationalization according to his will. A man of counsel will not neglect thought, but a strange and arrogant man does not tremble in fear. Do nothing without counsel, and when you have acted, do not regret it. Do not walk a path filled with obstacles, and do not trip over stony ground. Do not put your trust in an unexplored way, and keep watch because of your children. In every work entrust your soul to the Lord, for this is the keeping of the commandments. He who believes in the law heeds the commandments, and he who trusts in the Lord will not suffer loss. Chapter 33. Evil will not befall the man who fears the Lord, but in trial he will deliver him again and again. A wise man will not hate the law, but he who pretends to keep it is like a ship in a storm. A man of understanding will trust in the law, and to him the law is trustworthy because it is a divine revelation. Prepare what to say, and thus you will be heard. Draw on your training and make your reply. The heart of a fool resembles a wagon wheel, and his reasoning is like a turning axle. A lusty stallion is like a mocking friend. He impregnates everyone who sits under him. Reflecting on creation. Why is one day better than another, when all the light of a day and the year is from the sun? They were separated by the knowledge of the Lord, and he changed the seasons and feasts. Some days he exalted and sanctified, and some days he made ordinary. All men are from the ground, for Adam was created from the earth. In the fullness of knowledge the Lord separated them, and changed their paths. Some days he blessed and exalted, and some days he sanctified and drew near to himself. Some days he has cursed and humbled, and removed from their place. All his ways are according to his good pleasure, like clay in a potter's hand. Thus men are in the hand of him who made them, to render to them according to his judgment. Opposites. Good is the opposite of evil, and life is the opposite of death. In the same way, a sinner is the opposite of a godly man. Look, therefore, upon all the works of the Most High. They also come in pairs, one the opposite of the other. I kept the last watch like one gleaning after the harvest. By the blessing of the Lord I arrived in time, and like a grape picker I filled my winepress. Observe well that I did not labor for myself alone, but for all who seek instruction. Careful leadership. Hear me, you leaders of the people, and you rulers of the assembly, listen to me. Do not give authority over yourself while you are still living, to your son or your wife, nor to your brother or a friend, and do not give your property to another, lest you change your mind and need to beg for it. While you are still alive and there is breath in you, do not change places with anyone, for it is better that your children should ask from you, than that you should look to the hands of your sons. Be outstanding in all your works. Do not put a blemish on your reputation. On the day when the days of your life are fulfilled, at the time of your death, distribute the inheritance. Relating to servants, fodder, the rod, and a burden are for a donkey, and bread, instruction, and work are for a servant. Make a servant work, and you will find rest. Leave his hands idle, and he will seek freedom. Yoke and strap will bend the neck, and racks and tortures are for an evil servant. Put him to work that he may not be idle, for idleness teaches much evil. Set him to the work appropriate for him, and if he is not obedient, put heavy chains on his feet. And do not act superior toward any flesh, and do nothing without judgment. If you own a servant, let him be as yourself, for with your blood you bought him. If you own a servant, treat him as a brother, for you will need him as your own soul. If you treat him badly and he runs away, which way will you go look for him? Chapter 34. Discerning dreams. Vain hopes and lying belong to a man without understanding, and dreams give wing to senseless men, like him who grasps after shadows and chases the wind. so is he who pays attention to dreams. The vision of dreams is this against that, the likeness of a face opposite a face. What will be cleansed from an unclean thing, and what will be true from a false thing? Divinations, omens, and dreams are worthless, and like a woman in the pains of childbirth, the heart becomes visible, unless visions are sent from the Most High in a visitation. Do not give your heart to them, for dreams have deceived many, and those who hope in them have fallen away. Without such lying, the law will be fulfilled, and wisdom is perfection in the mouth of the faithful. Benefits of travel. A man who has traveled about knows many things, and a man with much experience will speak with understanding. A man who has not been tested knows little, but he who has traveled about increases his astuteness. I have seen many things in my travels, and my understanding is more than I can express in words. I have frequently been in danger of death, but I have been saved because of these experiences. The blessings of God. The spirit of those who fear the Lord will live, for their hope is in him who saves them. He who fears the Lord will fear nothing, and he will not be cowardly, for the Lord is his hope. Blessed is the soul of a man who fears the Lord. To whom does he look, and who is his support? The eyes of the Lord are upon those who love him. He is a powerful protection and a strong support, a shelter from the burning heat, a shelter from the noonday sun, a guard from stumbling, and help from a fall. He raises up the soul, and gives light to the eyes. He gives healing, life, and blessing. Unacceptable offerings. If a man sacrifices by means of wrongdoing, the offering is a mockery, and the gifts of the lawless are not accepted. The Most High is not pleased with the offerings of the ungodly, and a man does not atone for his sins with a multitude of sacrifices. He who offers a sacrifice from the property of the poor is like one who kills a son in the sight of his father. The bread of the needy is the life of the poor. He who deprives them of it is a man of bloodshed. Whoever takes away his neighbor's livelihood murders him, and whoever deprives a hired worker of his wages sheds his blood. If one builds up while another tears down, what do they profit other than toil? If one prays while another curses, whose voice will the Lord hear? If a man washes himself after touching a corpse, then touches it again, what does he profit by his washing? So it is with a man who fasts over his sins, and goes and does the same sins all over again. Who will hear his prayer? What does his humbling profit him? Chapter 35. Acceptable offerings. The man who keeps the law will abound in offerings. He who heeds the commandments sacrifices a peace offering. He who returns a kindness offers fine wheat flour, and he who does alms sacrifices a praise offering. To forsake evil is pleasing to the Lord, and to forsake wrongdoing is atonement. Do not appear before the Lord empty-handed, for all these offerings are made because of the commandment. A righteous offering anoints the altar, and its fragrance rises before the Most High. The sacrifice of a righteous man is acceptable, and its remembrance shall not be forgotten. Glorify the Lord with your generosity, and do not reduce the firstfruits of your hands. In every gift let your face be cheerful, and sanctify your tithe with gladness. Give to the Most High as he has given to you, and give to him with generosity, according to your windfall. For the Lord is he who repays, and he will repay you sevenfold. God's justice and mercy. Do not bribe him, for he will not accept it. And do not offer an unrighteous sacrifice, for the Lord is the judge, and there is no partiality with him. He will not show partiality to a poor man, but he will hear the petition of him who is wronged. He will not overlook the supplication of an orphan, nor a widow when she pours out her story. Do not the tears of a widow run down her cheeks, as she cries out against him who caused them. He whose service is pleasing to the Lord will be accepted by him, and his prayer will reach to the clouds. The prayer of a humble man passes through the clouds, and he will not be comforted until it reaches the Lord. And he will not withdraw it until the Most High visits him, provides justice for the righteous, and executes judgment. So the Lord will not delay, neither will he be slow to help them, until he crushes the loins of the unmerciful, and repays vengeance upon the nations, until he destroys the multitude of the insolent, and crushes the scepter of the unrighteous, until he renders to a man according to his practices, and the works of men according to their devices, until he judges the cause of his people, and brings them joy with his mercy. Mercy is beautiful in the time of his affliction, like rain in the time of drought. Chapter 36. A prayer for Israel. Have mercy on us, O Lord, the God of all, and look upon us, and put your fear on all the nations. Raise your hand against foreign nations, and let them see your power. As in us you have been sanctified before them, so in them may you be made great before us. Let them know you as we also have known you. For there is no God but you, O Lord. Renew your signs and work fresh wonders. Glorify your hand and your right arm. Stir up your anger and pour out your wrath. Drive away the adversary and destroy the enemy. Hasten the time and remember your oath, and let people declare your mighty works. Let him who survives be devoured in your fiery wrath, and may those who harm your people meet destruction. Crush the heads of the rulers of the enemies, who say, there is no one but us. Gather together all the tribes of Jacob, and grant them their inheritance as from the beginning. Have mercy upon your people called by your name, O Lord, upon Israel, whom you have likened to your firstborn son. Have pity on the city of your sanctuary, Jerusalem, the place of your rest. Fill Zion with the celebration of your divine virtue, and your people with your glory. Give testimony to what you created in the beginning, and raise up the prophecies spoken in your name. Reward those who wait for you, and let your prophets be found trustworthy. Hear, O Lord, the prayer of your suppliants, according to the blessing of Aaron over your people, and all on earth will know that you are the Lord, the God of the ages. Using discernment, the stomach eats any kind of food, but some food is better than others. As the palate tastes the flavor of game, so an understanding heart detects lying words. A crooked heart will cause grief, but a man with great experience will pay him back. A woman will accept any son, but one daughter is better than another. A beautiful woman gladdens a man's face, and surpasses his every desire. If there is mercy and gentleness on her tongue, her husband is not like other men. He who gains a wife gets his best possession, a helper like himself and a pillar of support. Where there is no wall, the property will be plundered, and where a man has no wife, he will wander around and groan. Who will trust a well-equipped thief, who skips from city to city? Who will trust a man who has no home, and lodges wherever night overtakes him? Chapter 37. Choosing companions. Every friend will say, I too am your friend, but sometimes a friend is a friend in name only. Is it not a grief to the death, when a companion and friend turns to hatred? O evil reasoning, why were you involved? To cover the land with deceit. A companion delights in the gladness of a friend, but in time of affliction he will be against him. A companion labors to help a friend for his stomach's sake, and in a time of battle he will take up the shield. Do not forget a friend in your soul, and do not be unmindful of him with your wealth. Choosing counselors. Every counselor extols his own counsel, and some offer advice in their own interest. Protect yourself from a counselor, and know beforehand what is his interest, for he will take thought for himself, lest he cast his vote against you, and say to you, your path is good. Then he will stand aside to see what will happen to you. Do not consult with a man who looks at you suspiciously, and hide your counsel from those who envy you. Also, do not consult with a woman about her rival, nor with a coward about battle, nor with a merchant about exchange, nor with a buyer about selling, nor with a slanderer about gratitude, nor with an unmerciful man about generosity, nor with an idler about any work, nor with a seasonal hired hand about completing his work, nor with a lazy servant about a big job. Pay no attention to these in any counsel. Instead, persevere with a godly man, who you know keeps the commandments, whose soul accords with your soul, and will share in your suffering if you fall. Stand firm on the counsel of your heart, for no one is more faithful to you than it. For a man's soul sometimes tells him more than 7 watchmen sitting high on a watchtower. And in all matters, pray to the Most High, that he may direct your way in truth. Wisdom, false and true. A word is the beginning of every work, and counsel comes before every action. 4 types of things appear, as a clue to a change of heart: good and evil, life and death, and it is the tongue that continually rules them. There is an astute man who is a teacher of many, but is useless to his own soul. A man who devises words craftily will be hated. This man will go hungry, for grace was not given to him from the Lord, because he is destitute of all wisdom. There is a man wise in his own soul, and the fruits of his understanding are trustworthy when he speaks. A wise man will instruct his own people, and the fruits of his understanding are trustworthy. A wise man shall be filled with blessing, and all who see him will consider him blessed. The life of a man is numbered by days, but the days of Israel are without number. The wise man will inherit trust among his people, and his name will live forever. Gluttony. My son, while you are still living, test your soul, and see what is bad for it, and do not give in to that. For not everything is profitable for everyone, and not every soul enjoys everything. Do not be gluttonous for every dainty food, and do not give yourself over to food, for overeating will bring sickness, and gluttony will lead to nausea. Many have died because of gluttony, but the careful man will prolong his life. Chapter 38. Honoring the physician. Honor the physician with the honor due him, and also according to your need of him, for the Lord created him. Healing comes from the Most High, and he will receive a gift from the King. The physician's skill will lift up his head, and he shall be admired in the presence of the great. The Lord created medicines from the earth, and a sensible man will not loathe them. Is not water made sweet by wood, that its strength might be known? And he gave skill to men, that he might be glorified in his wonders. By them he heals and takes away pain, a druggist making a compound of them. God's works are never finished, and from him health is upon the face of the earth. My son, do not be negligent when you are sick, but pray to the Lord and he will heal you. Depart from transgression and direct your hands aright, and cleanse your heart from every sin. Offer a sweet-smelling sacrifice, and a memorial of the finest wheat flour, and pour oil on your offering, as if you are soon to die, and keep in touch with your physician, for the Lord created him, and do not let him leave you, for you need him. There is a time when success is also in their hands, for they will pray to the Lord, to give them success in bringing relief and healing, for the sake of preserving your life. He who sins before the one who made him, may he fall into the hands of a physician. Mourning the departed. My son, let your tears fall for the dead, and as one suffering grievously, begin the lament. With the honor due him, wrap his body, and take care of his burial. Weep bitterly and lament fervently. Do your mourning according to what he deserves, for a day or two to avoid slander. Then be comforted for your grief, for grief is a cause of death, and a grief-stricken heart will sap your strength. Grief also abides in misery, and the life of a poor man weighs down his heart. Do not give your heart to grief, drive it away, remembering the end of life. Do not forget, for there is no coming back, and you cannot help the dead man by grieving, but will only injure yourself. Remember my end, since yours is also like it. Mine yesterday, yours today. When the dead man is at rest, let his remembrance cease, and be comforted for him in the exodus of his spirit. Gratitude for laborers. The wisdom of a scribe depends on his opportunity for quiet, for when he has little business, he will be made wise. How will he who handles the plow be made wise? For he boasts in the shaft of the goad, and he drives oxen and is occupied with their labors, and his talk is about young bulls. His heart is set on plowing furrows, and he keeps watch to feed his heifers. The same is true for every craftsman and architect, who works by night as well as by day. Those who engrave the signets of seals, he is diligent to make great variety, his heart set on creating a lifelike image, and keeping watch to perfect his work. So too is the blacksmith sitting near the anvil, examining closely his iron works, the breath of the fire melting his flesh, as he struggles with the heat of the furnace. He inclines his ear to the sound of the hammer, and his eyes are focused on the likeness of the object. He sets his heart on the completion of his works, and keeps watch to perfect its detail. The potter as well, sitting by his work, and turning the potter's wheel with his feet. He is always careful about the quality of his work, and also the quantity of his output. With his arm he molds the clay, and with his feet he curves it. His heart is set on finishing the glazing, and he is careful to clean the furnace. All these trust in their hands, and each is skilled in his work. Without them a city will not be livable, nor will anyone sojourn or live there. Yet they will not be sought out for the counsel of the people, and they will not gain prominence in the assembly. They do not sit in the judge's seat, nor will they understand the sentence of judgment. They cannot give instruction in discipline or judgment, nor will they be found using parables, but they will keep the fabric of the world stable, and their prayer is in the practice of their craft. Chapter 39. Students of God's Word. How different is the man who devotes himself to the study of the law of the Most High. He will seek out the wisdom of all the ancients, and be occupied with their prophecies. He will preserve the discourse of notable men, and penetrate the subtleties of parables. He will seek out the hidden meanings of proverbs, and be engaged in the riddles of parables. He will serve in the midst of great men, and will appear before rulers. He will travel through the land of foreign nations, and test the good and evil among men. He will give his heart to rising early, before the Lord who created him, and will make supplication to the Most High. And he will open his mouth in prayer, and make supplication for his sins. If the great Lord wills, he will be filled with the spirit of understanding. He will pour forth words of his wisdom, and in prayer he will give thanks to the Lord. He will direct his counsel and knowledge aright, and he will reflect on his hidden things. He will reveal instruction in his teaching, and boast in the law of the Lord's covenant. Many will praise his understanding, and it will never be blotted out. His memory will not disappear, and his name will live through all generations. Nations will proclaim his wisdom, and the assembly will proclaim his praise. If he lives long, he will leave a name greater than 1,000, and if he goes to his rest, his work is completed. Praise for God's works. I have yet more to tell, and I will describe it in detail, for I am filled like a full moon. So hear me, O holy sons, and bud forth like a rose, springing up by a running stream. Like frankincense, emit a sweet fragrance, and blossom forth like a lily. Send forth a fragrance, and sing a hymn of praise. Bless the Lord in all his works, ascribe majesty to his name, and give thanks to him in praise, with songs on your lips and with lyres. And thus you shall say in thanksgiving, all things are the works of the Lord, for they are exceedingly good, and every command shall be in his appointed time. No one can say, what is this? Why is that? For every question will be answered in his appointed time. By his word the waters stood as a heap, and the reservoirs of the waters by the word of his mouth. By his command all his good pleasure is done, and no one will diminish his salvation. The works of all flesh are before him, and nothing can be hidden from his eyes. From age to age he looks upon them, and nothing is marvelous to him. No one can say, what is this? Why is that? For all things were created for their uses. His blessing covers the dry land like a river, and drenches it like a flood. As he turns fresh waters into salt, so the heathen will inherit his wrath. As his ways are straight to the holy, so they are an occasion of stumbling to the lawless. As from the beginning good things were created for the good, so evil things for sinners. The basic needs of a man's life are water, fire, iron, salt, and wheat flour, and milk, honey, the blood of the grape, olive oil, and clothing. As all these things are good for the godly, so they turn into evil for sinners. There are spirits created for vengeance, and in his anger they strengthen their scourges. In the time of consummation they will pour out their might, and appease the wrath of him who made them. Fire, hail, famine, and death, All these things are created for vengeance: the teeth of wild animals, scorpions and snakes, and the avenging sword that drives the ungodly to destruction. They shall be glad at his commandment, and be prepared for his service on earth. And when their times come, they will not transgress his word. Therefore from the beginning I was determined and resolved, and left this in writing. All the works of the Lord are good, and he will supply every need in its hour. No one can say, this is worse than that, for all things will be well-pleasing in their time. So now sing praise with all your heart and voice, and bless the name of the Lord. Chapter 40. Students of God's Word. How different is the man who devotes himself to the study of the law of the Most High. He will seek out the wisdom of all the ancients, and be occupied with their prophecies. He will preserve the discourse of notable men, and penetrate the subtleties of parables. He will seek out the hidden meanings of proverbs, and be engaged in the riddles of parables. He will serve in the midst of great men, and will appear before rulers. He will travel through the land of foreign nations, and test the good and evil among men. He will give his heart to rising early, before the Lord who created him, and will make supplication to the Most High. And he will open his mouth in prayer, and make supplication for his sins. If the great Lord wills, he will be filled with the spirit of understanding. He will pour forth words of his wisdom, and in prayer he will give thanks to the Lord. He will direct his counsel in knowledge aright, and he will reflect on his hidden things. He will reveal instruction in his teaching, and boast in the law of the Lord's covenant. Many will praise his understanding, and it will never be blotted out. His memory will not disappear, and his name will live through all generations. Nations will proclaim his wisdom, and the assembly will proclaim his praise. If he lives long, he will leave a name greater than 1,000, and if he goes to his rest, his work is completed. Praise for God's works. I have yet more to tell, and I will describe it in detail, for I am filled like a full moon. So hear me, O holy sons, and bud forth like a rose, springing up by a running stream. Like frankincense, emit a sweet fragrance, and blossom forth like a lily. Send forth a fragrance, and sing a hymn of praise. Bless the Lord in all his works, ascribe majesty to his name, and give thanks to him in praise, with songs on your lips and with lyres. And thus you shall say in thanksgiving, all things are the works of the Lord, for they are exceedingly good, and every command shall be in his appointed time. No one can say, what is this? Why is that? For every question will be answered in his appointed time. By his word the waters stood as a heap, and the reservoirs of the waters by the word of his mouth. By his command all his good pleasure is done, and no one will diminish his salvation. The works of all flesh are before him, and nothing can be hidden from his eyes. From age to age he looks upon them, and nothing is marvelous to him. No one can say, what is this? Why is that? For all things were created for their uses. His blessing covers the dry land like a river, and drenches it like a flood. As he turns fresh waters into salt, so the heathen will inherit his wrath. As his ways are straight to the holy, so they are an occasion of stumbling to the lawless. As from the beginning good things were created for the good, so evil things for sinners. The basic needs of a man's life are water, fire, iron, salt, and wheat flour, and milk, honey, the blood of the grape, olive oil, and clothing. As all these things are good for the godly, so they turn into evil for sinners. There are spirits created for vengeance, and in his anger they strengthen their scourges. In the time of consummation they will pour out their might, and appease the wrath of him who made them. Fire, hail, famine, and death, all these things are created for vengeance. The teeth of wild animals, scorpions and snakes, and the avenging sword that drives the ungodly to destruction. They shall be glad at his commandment, and be prepared for his service on earth. And when their times come, they will not transgress his word. Therefore from the beginning I was determined and resolved, and left this in writing. All the works of the Lord are good, and he will supply every need in its hour. No one can say, this is worse than that, for all things will be well-pleasing in their time. So now sing praise with all your heart and voice, and bless the name of the Lord. Chapter 41. Dealing with death. O death, how bitter is the memory of you, to a man at peace with his possessions, to a man without distractions and prosperous in everything, and still strong enough to enjoy his food. O death, your judgment is good, to the man in need and failing in strength, in his extreme old age, distracted by everything, and stubborn and short on patience. Do not fear the judgment of death. Remember those before you and after you. This is the judgment from the Lord to all flesh. And how can you reject the good pleasure of the Most High? Whether you live 10 or 100 or 1,000 years, there is in Hades no inquiry into your life. The children of sinners are loathsome children, and they frequent the dwellings of the ungodly. The inheritance of the children of sinners will perish, and with their seed the disgrace will continue. The children will blame their godless father, for because of him they will be denounced. Woe to you, the ungodly men, who forsook the law of God Most High. And when you are born, you will be born to a curse, and when you die, your portion will be a curse. Whatever is from the earth shall return to the earth. So the ungodly go from a curse to destruction. The mourning of men is about their bodies, but the evil name of sinners will be blotted out. Have regard for your name, for it will remain with you longer than 1,000 great chests of gold. The days of a good life are numbered. but a good name will remain forever. Observe instruction and live in peace, my children. But hidden wisdom and invisible treasure, what benefit are these? A man who hides his foolishness is better than a man who hides his wisdom. Shame, proper and improper. Therefore, be ashamed on the basis of my word, for it is not good to protect every kind of shame, and not everything is highly esteemed by all with confidence. Be ashamed of fornication before father or mother, of a lie before your leader or ruler, of an offense before a judge or ruler, of lawlessness before the assembly of the people, of wrongdoing before your partner or friend, of theft in the place where you dwell. Be ashamed before the truth of God and his covenant, and of bad manners at the table, of contemptuous behavior in receiving and giving, of silence before those who greet you, of looking at a prostitute, of rejecting the appeal of a kinsman, of carrying off someone's portion or gift, and of staring at another man's wife, of meddling with his maidservant, and do not come near her bed. Be ashamed of insulting words before friends, and do not be insulting after making a gift, of repeating and telling what you hear, and revealing secrets. So be truly modest, and find favor before every man. Chapter 42. Do not be ashamed of the following things, and do not let partiality lead you to sin, of the law and covenant of the Most High, and of a judgment to acquit an ungodly man, of keeping accounts with a partner or a traveling companion, and of dividing an inheritance among friends, of accurate scales and balances, and the acquisition of much or little, of profit from business with merchants, and of much discipline of children, and of making the sides of an evil servant bleed. Where there is an evil wife, a seal is good, and where there are many hands, lock things up. Whatever you deliver, do it by number or weight, and put in writing everything you give or receive. Do not be ashamed of the instructing of the unwise and foolish, or of the extremely old man who passes judgment on the young. Then you will be truly instructed, and approved before all men. Fathers and daughters. A daughter keeps her father secretly wakeful, for worry over her takes away his sleep, lest in her youth she passes the time to marry, and lest in her marriage she be hated, in her virginity lest she be defiled, or become pregnant in her father's house, having a husband, lest she be unfaithful, or though married, lest she be childless. Keep a strict watch over a headstrong daughter, lest she make you a laughingstock to your enemies, a source of gossip in the city, and notorious among the people, and a disgrace to you before the great multitude. Do not look upon anyone for beauty, and do not sit in the midst of women, for a moth comes out of garments, and the evil of a woman comes from a woman. The evil of a man is better than a woman who does what is good, yet brings shame and disgrace. God's glorious works. I shall now remember the works of the Lord, and by the words of the Lord, I shall describe his works that I see. The sun gives light and looks down on everything, and its work is full of the Lord's glory. The Lord did not enable his saints to describe all his wonders, which the Lord Almighty established, that the universe might be established in his glory. He traced out the abyss in the human heart, and understands their craftiness, for the Most High possesses all knowledge, and sees into the signs of an age. He proclaims what has been and what shall be, and reveals the footstep of hidden things. No thought escapes him, not even one word is hidden from him. He has adorned the mighty works of his wisdom, for he is from everlasting to everlasting. Nothing can be added or taken away, and he needs no one to be his counselor. How precious are all his works, and how sparkling to behold. All these things live and endure forever, for every need, and all are obedient. All things are in pairs, one opposite the other, and he made nothing incomplete. One thing strengthens the good of another, and who can have enough of beholding his glory? Chapter 43. Sun, moon, and stars. The exaltation of the heavenly heights is the firmament of purity, the form of heaven with the vision of glory. The sun, when it appears, making proclamation as it goes forth, is a wonderful instrument, a work of the Most High. At noon it dries up the land, and who can endure its burning heat? A man kindling a furnace works in burning heat, but the sun burns the mountains 3 times as much, breathing out fiery steams, and sending forth shining beams. It dims the eyes. Great is the Lord who made it, and by his command it hastens its journey. He also made the moon to serve in its season, as a declaration of times and an everlasting sign. From the moon comes the sign of a feast, a light that wanes as it completes its course. The month is named according to the moon, being increased wondrously in its phases, a vessel encamped on high, shining in the firmament of heaven. The glory of the stars is the beauty of heaven, a world shining in the high places of the Lord. By the words of the Holy One they stand according to his judgment, and do not grow weary in their watches. The majestic creation. Behold the rainbow and bless him who made it, exceedingly beautiful in its brightness. It circles heaven with its glorious arc, and the hands of the Most High laid out its course. By his command he makes the snow to fall, and speeds the lightning by his judgment. Therefore the storehouses are opened, and the clouds fly forth like birds. By his majesty he condenses the clouds, and the hailstones break into pieces. At his appearing the mountains are shaken, and by his will the south wind blows. The voice of his thunder makes the earth tremble, and so do the hurricane from the north and the whirlwind as well. He sprinkles the snow like birds flying down, and its descent is like grasshoppers alighting. The eye marvels at the beauty of its whiteness, and the heart is astonished at its raining down. He pours the hoarfrost like salt upon the earth, and when it freezes, it becomes like pointed thorns. A cold north wind blows, and ice freezes on the water, and forms on every pool of water, and clothes the water like armor. He consumes the mountains and burns up the desert, and withers the green herbage like fire. A mist quickly heals it all, and falling dew brings refreshment from the heat. By his reasoning he quieted the great deep, and planted islands in it. Those who sail the sea recount its dangers, and we are amazed at the reports coming to our ears. For therein are the incredible and wondrous works, a diversity of many living things, and a created order of huge sea creatures. Because of him his messenger has a prosperous journey, and by his word all things are held together. How do we praise him? We will say many things and not reach the end, but the sum of our words is seen in this: he is the all. How shall we ever be able to adequately praise him? For he is greater than all his works. Fearful is the Lord and exceedingly great, and wondrous is his power. Glorify the Lord and exalt him as much as you are able, for he will surpass even that. And when you exalt him, put forth all your strength. Do not grow weary, for you cannot exalt him enough. Who has seen him and will describe him? And who can magnify him as he truly is? There are yet many hidden things greater than these, for we have seen but few of his works. For the Lord made all things, and gives wisdom to the godly. Chapter 44. In praise of honored men. Let us now praise honored men and our fathers. The Lord established his great glory and majesty from the beginning through them. There were those who ruled in their kingdoms, and were men renowned for their power, giving counsel through their understanding, and proclaiming prophecies. There were leaders of the people by their counsels, and understanding of learning for the people, wise in their words of instruction. There were composers of music, and they set forth verse and writing. Wealthy men with great resources, living in peace in their dwelling places. All these were honored in their generations, and in their days were a source of boasting. There were those who left behind a name, that men might declare their praises. There were also those whom no one remembers, who perished as if they never existed, and they died as if they had not been born, and so have their children after them. Nevertheless, these were men of mercy, whose righteousness lives with God. The good they did remains with their seed, and their inheritance with their children's children. Their seed stands with the covenants, and their children as well for their sake. Their seed shall remain forever, and their glory will not be blotted out. Their bodies were buried in peace, and their name lives to all generations. Peoples will tell of their wisdom, and the assembly will proclaim their praise. Enoch. Enoch pleased the Lord and was translated as an example of repentance for all generations. Noah. Noah was found perfect, and was righteous in the time of wrath, in which he was rescued in exchange. Therefore a remnant was left on the earth. When the flood came, everlasting covenants were made with him, that all flesh would not be wiped away again by a flood. Abraham and his sons. Abraham was a great father of many nations, and no one is found like him in glory. He kept the law of the Most High, who made a covenant with him. He established a covenant in his flesh, and he was found faithful in testing. Therefore he affirmed by an oath that nations would be blessed in his seed, and he would multiply him like the dust of the earth, and exalt his seed like the stars in number, and cause them to inherit from sea unto sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. And with Isaac he established the same assurance, for the sake of Abraham his father, a blessing for all men, and the covenant he made rest upon the head of Jacob. He acknowledged him with his blessings, and gave him an inheritance. Then he divided his portions among 12 tribes. Chapter 45. Moses. He brought from him a man of mercy, who found favor in the eyes of all flesh, beloved by God and man. Moses, whose remembrance is blessed. He made him equal in glory to the saints, and magnified him in the fears of his enemies. With his words he caused signs to cease, and the Lord honored him in the presence of kings. He gave him commands for his people, and showed him his glory. He sanctified him because of his faithfulness and gentleness, and chose him out of all flesh. He caused him to hear his voice, then led him into the darkness, and gave him the commandments face to face, the law of life and knowledge, to teach Jacob his covenant, and his judgments to Israel. Aaron. He exalted Aaron, a holy man like himself, his brother from the tribe of Levi. He established an everlasting covenant with him, and gave him the priesthood of the people. He blessed him with orderly behavior, and covered him with an adornment of glory. He clothed him with the consummation of boasting, and confirmed him with instruments of strength, the linen breeches, the long robe, and the ephod. And he encircled him with tassels, with many golden bells all around, to sound their ring at his steps, making their ringing sound, as he walked in the temple, a reminder for the children of his people, with a holy garment, with gold and hyacinth, and purple cloth with embroidered work, with the oracle of judgment, the Urim and Thummim, with woven scarlet by the work of an artisan, with entwined scarlet, the work of a skilled craftsman, with precious stones engraved like a seal, in a setting of gold, in a cut stone, a jeweler's work, with a memorial in engraved letters, according to the number of the tribes of Israel. He set a golden crown over the priestly turban, a figure of the holy seal, a distinction of honor, the work of an expert, things desirable to the eyes, richly adorned. There was never so much beauty before his time. No outsider was ever clothed in these garments, only his sons and his offspring perpetually. His sacrifices shall be a whole burnt offering, perpetually, twice every day. Moses ordained him and anointed him with holy oil. It was an eternal covenant for him, and for his seed forever, to minister to the Lord and serve as priest, to bless his people in his name. He chose him from all the living, to offer sacrifices to the Lord, incense and sweet-smelling offerings as a remembrance, to make atonement for your people. He gave him authority with his commandments, in covenants of judgments, to teach Jacob the testimonies, and to enlighten Israel in his law. Outsiders conspired against him, and were jealous of him in the desert, the men who gathered with Dathan and Abiram, and even the company of Korah with anger and wrath. The Lord saw and was not pleased, and they were brought to an end by the anger of his wrath. He performed wonders against them, to consume them in his flaming fire. He also brought Aaron glory, and gave him an inheritance. He divided the firstfruits for him. He prepared bread in abundance from the firstfruits, for they will eat the sacrifices to the Lord, which he gave to him and to his seed. But in the land of the people, he will have no inheritance, and there is no portion for him among the people, for the Lord himself is his portion and his inheritance. Then Phinehas the son of Eleazar is the third in glory, when he showed zeal in the fear of the Lord, and he stood fast when the people turned away, by the goodness of the eagerness of his soul, and he made atonement for Israel. Therefore he established a covenant of peace with him, to be in charge of the sanctuary, and leader of his people, that the priesthood might be with him and his seed forever. A covenant was also established with David, the son of Jesse from the tribe of Judah. The heritage of the king is from son to son only, and the heritage of Aaron is for his seed. May he give you wisdom in your heart, to judge his people in righteousness, that their good things might not disappear, and their glory throughout their generations. Chapter 46. Joshua and Caleb. Mighty in battle was Joshua the son of Nun, and successor to Moses in prophecies. He became, in accordance with his name, a great savior of God's chosen ones, to punish the enemies who rose up against them, that he might give Israel its inheritance. How glorious he was when he lifted up his hands, and stretched out his sword against the cities, who stood so firm before him. For he led the wars for the Lord. Was not the sun held back by his hand, and one day become as two? He called upon the Most High, the Lord, when enemies oppressed him from all sides. Then the great Lord answered him, with hailstones of mighty power. He shattered that nation with war, and at the descent of Beth Horon, he destroyed his opponents, so the nations might know his full armor, that he fought his battle in the sight of the Lord. For indeed he followed behind the Lord. Even in the days of Moses he showed mercy. He and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, they withstood the assembly, to prevent the people from sinning, and to stop their evil murmuring. Indeed, these two alone were preserved, from the 600,000 on foot, to lead them into an inheritance, into a land flowing with milk and honey. The Lord gave Caleb strength, and remained with him until old age, for he went up to the hill country, and his seed took it as an inheritance. So all the children of Israel might know that it is good to follow the Lord. The judges also, each by his name, those whose heart did not fall into idolatry, and whoever did not turn away from the Lord. May their memory be blessed, may their bones revive from their place, and may the name of those honored live again in their sons. Samuel, the prophet of the Lord. Samuel, beloved by his Lord, established a kingdom and anointed rulers for his people. He judged the assembly by the law of the Lord, and the Lord watched over Jacob. By his faithfulness he proved to be a true prophet, and by his words he was known to be faithful in vision. Thus he called upon the Lord, the Mighty One, when enemies troubled him on every side, and when he offered a young lamb. Then the Lord thundered from heaven, and with a great sound made his voice heard. He destroyed the leaders of the Tyrians, and all the rulers of the Philistines, and before the time of his sleep in perpetuity, Samuel called men to witness, before the Lord and his anointed, I have not taken any man's possessions, even to my sandals. Indeed, no man brought any charges against him. Even after he fell asleep, he prophesied, and showed the king his end, and raised up his voice out of the earth, with a prophecy to wipe away the lawlessness of the people. Chapter 47. Nathan and David. Then after this Nathan rose up to prophesy in the days of David. As the fat was divided from the peace offering, so David was separated from the sons of Israel. He played with lions as with young goats, and with bears as with lambs of sheep. Did he not slay a giant in his youth, and remove the disgrace from the people, when he took in his hand a stone for a sling, and struck down the arrogance of Goliath? For he called upon the Lord Most High, and strength was given to his right hand, to defeat the mighty man in battle, to exalt the power of his people. So for his tens of thousands they glorified him, and praised him for the blessings of the Lord, when they brought him a diadem of glory. For he destroyed his enemies all around, reduced to nothing his enemies the Philistines, and crushed their power to this very day. In his every work he gave thanks with a word of praise, to the Holy One, the Most High, and he sang a hymn with all his heart, and loved his Maker. He placed psalm singers before the altar, to make sweet melody with their voices. He gave dignity to the feasts, and set in order the appointed times throughout the year, for them to praise his holy name, and for the sanctuary to resound from early morning. The Lord took away his sins, exalted his power forever, and gave him a covenant of kings, and a throne of glory in Israel, Solomon and his successors. After him there arose his wise son, who lodged in a broad space because of him. For Solomon reigned in days of peace, to whom God gave rest on every side, that he might establish a house for his name, and prepare a sanctuary to last forever. How wise you were in your youth, and filled with understanding like a river. Your soul covered the earth, and you were filled with the parables of riddles. Your name was known to islands far away, and you were loved for your peace, and for your songs, proverbs, and parables. Nations marveled at you because of your interpretations. In the name of the Lord God, who is called the God of Israel, you collected gold like tin, and multiplied silver like lead. But you lay down beside women, and were enslaved by your body. You brought disgrace on your honor, and defiled your seed, so as to bring wrath upon your children, and they were pierced by your lack of good sense. Thus one kingdom became two, for out of Ephraim there began a disobedient kingdom. But the Lord did not abandon his mercy, nor corrupt any of his words. Neither did he wipe away the descendants of his chosen one, nor did he remove the seed of the one who loved him. He gave a remnant to Jacob, and to David a root from his stock. When Solomon rested with his fathers, he left behind him one of his sons, lacking in good sense and understanding, Rehoboam, who turned away the people by his counsel. There was also Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin, and led Ephraim on the road to sin. Then their sins were multiplied exceedingly, so as to remove them from their land. They sought every wickedness, until punishment came upon them. Chapter 48. Elijah. Then Elijah the prophet rose up like fire, and his word burned like a lamp. He brought a famine upon them, and in his zeal he reduced them in number. By the word of the Lord he shut up heaven, and also 3 times he brought down fire. So by your wonders you were honored, O Elijah, and who can boast like you? You raised the dead from death, and from Hades by the word of the Most High. You brought down kings to destruction, and from their bed those who had been honored. You heard rebuke at Sinai, and at Horeb the judgments of punishment. You anointed kings for retribution, and prophets to serve after you. You were taken up in a fiery whirlwind, in a chariot of flaming horses. It is written that you will come at the proper time with rebukes, to calm the wrath of God before it breaks forth in fury, to turn the heart of the father to the son, and to restore the tribes of Jacob. Blessed are those who saw you, and who fell asleep with love, for indeed we will surely live. Elijah was covered by the whirlwind, and Elisha was filled with his spirit, and in his days he trembled before no ruler, and no one oppressed him, no word could overcome him, and after death his body prophesied. As in his life he did wonders, so even in death his works were amazing. For all these things the people did not repent, nor they did turn away from their sins, until their land was plundered. Then they were scattered over all the earth, but a people few in number were left, and a ruler in the house of David. Some of them did what was virtuous, but some multiplied sins. Hezekiah and Isaiah. Hezekiah fortified his city, and brought water into its midst. He dug through the hard rock with iron, and constructed cisterns for the water. In his days Sennacherib came up, and sent out the Rabshakeh, and he retreated. Then he lifted up his hand against Zion, and boasted in his arrogance. So their hearts and hands were shaken, and they suffered pain like women giving birth. Then they called upon the merciful Lord, stretching out their hands toward him. Thus the Holy One quickly heard them from heaven, and rescued them by the hand of Isaiah. He struck the camp of the Assyrians, and his angel destroyed them. For Hezekiah did what was pleasing to the Lord, and grew strong in the ways of David his father, which Isaiah the prophet commanded, the one great and faithful in his vision. In his days the sun moved backward, and lengthened the life of the king. With a great spirit he saw the last things, and encouraged those who mourned in Zion. He showed what was to come to the end of time, and the hidden things before they came to pass. Chapter 49. Josiah and Jeremiah. The remembrance of Josiah is like the composition of incense, prepared by the work of the perfumer. In every mouth it is sweet like honey, and like the music at a banquet with wine. He led in the conversion of the people, and he removed the abominations of lawlessness. He directed his heart to the Lord, and in days of lawlessness he strengthened godliness. Except for David, Hezekiah, and Josiah, all offended continually, for they forsook the law of the Most High. The kings of Judah failed, for they gave their power to others, and their glory to a foreign nation. They set fire to the chosen city of the sanctuary, and desolated her streets, according to the word of Jeremiah. For they did him evil, he who was sanctified as a prophet while still inside his mother, to root out, to afflict, and to destroy, and likewise to build and to plant. Ezekiel and the 12 prophets. Ezekiel himself saw a vision of glory, which the Lord showed him on a chariot of cherubim. For he remembered his enemies with a thunderstorm, and did good to those who directed their ways aright. May he indeed revive the bones of the 12 prophets from their place, for they encouraged the people of Jacob. and redeemed them with steadfast hope. Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah. How shall we magnify Zerubbabel? He was surely like a seal upon the right hand, and so was Jeshua the son of Jozadak, who in their days built the house, and raised up a holy temple to the Lord, one prepared unto eternal glory. There is the lasting memory of Nehemiah, who raised for us the walls that had fallen, and he established gates and locks, and raised again our home sites, others of honor. No one like Enoch was created upon the earth, for he himself was taken up from the earth. Neither has a man like Joseph been born, the leader of his brothers and the support of his people, and they watched over his bones. Shem and Seth were honored among men, and Adam over every living thing in creation. Chapter 50. Simon, son of Onias. There was Simon, the high priest and son of Onias, who repaired the house during his life, and strengthened the temple in his days. He also laid the foundation of the double-high wall, the fortified wall surrounding the temple. In his days the cistern for the waters was dug, a reservoir like a sea in circumference. He was concerned about how to save his people from ruin, and he strengthened the city to withstand siege. The Day of Atonement. So was he honored when the people gathered round, as he came out from behind the veil, like the morning star in the midst of the clouds, like the moon when it is full, like the sun shining upon the temple of the Most High, and like the rainbow shining in clouds of glory, like the bloom of the rose in the days of firstfruits, like lilies by a spring of water, like a sprig of frankincense in the summer, like fire and incense in the censer, like a solid gold vessel decorated with every precious stone, like an olive tree sprouting fresh fruit, and like a cypress tree rising into the clouds. When he took up a robe of honor, and was clothed with the perfection of boasting, in his ascent to the holy altar, he glorified the court of the sanctuary, when he received the portion from the hands of the priests, while standing by the hearth of the altar, a crowd of brethren surrounding him. He was like a sapling of cedar in Lebanon, and they encircled him like the trunks of palm trees, all the sons of Aaron in their glory, and the offering to the Lord in their hands, before all the assembly of Israel, finishing the services at the altars, and arranging the offering to the Most High, the Almighty. He stretched out his hand to the cup, and poured a libation of the blood of the grapes. He poured it out on the foundation of the altar, a fragrance sent to the King of all, the Most High. Then the sons of Aaron cried out, sounding out the trumpets of hammered work, a great noise to be heard, as a remembrance before the Most High. Then all the people hastened in common, and fell with their faces on the ground, to worship their Lord, the Almighty God, the Most High. The singers also praised him with their voices, and their song was sweetened with a variety of sounds. The people also prayed to the Lord Most High, in prayer before the Merciful One, until the order of the Lord was ended, and they finished his liturgy. Then going down he lifted up his hands, over the entire assembly of the children of Israel, and to boast in his name. Then they bowed down and worship a second time, to receive the blessing from the Most High. Praise of honored men concluded. And now bless the God of all, who does great things in every way, who exalts our days from our birth, and deals with us according to his mercy. May he give us gladness of heart, and may there be peace in our days, in Israel as in the days of old. May he entrust with us his mercy, and let him redeem us in our days. Author's summary. With 2 nations my soul is angered, and the third is not a nation, those who reside on the mountain of Samaria and the Philistines, and the foolish people who dwell in Shechem. Jesus, son of Sirach, son of Eleazar the Jerusalemite, who poured wisdom forth in this book, I inscribed instruction in understanding and knowledge. Blessed is he who will conduct himself by these, for by putting these things in his heart, he will be made wise. For if he does these things, he will grow strong in all things, for the light of the Lord is his path. Chapter 51. A Psalm of Thanks. I will give thanks to you, O Lord and King, and I will praise you as my God and Savior. I give thanks to your name, for you have been my protector and helper, and you redeemed my body from destruction, and from the snare of a slanderous tongue, from the lips of those who work falsehood. And before all those who stood by, you were a helper, and you redeemed me, according to your great mercy and your name, from being devoured as one prepared for food, at the hands of those who sought my soul, from many afflictions that I endured, from suffocation by an encircling fire, and from the midst of a fire I did not start, from the depths of the belly of Hades, and from the tongue of the unclean and the word of a liar, the slander of an unrighteous tongue before the king. My soul drew near unto death, and my life was near Hades below. They surrounded me on all sides, and there was no one to help me. I looked for the help of men, but there was none. Then I remembered your mercy, O Lord, and your work which is from of old. For you lift up those who wait upon you, and you save them from the hand of their enemies. I sent up my supplication from the earth, and prayed about the instability caused by death. I called upon the Lord, the Father of my Lord, that he might not forsake me in the days of affliction. When I am helpless against the arrogant, I will praise your name continually, and I will sing a hymn with thanksgiving. My prayer was heard, for you saved me from destruction, and rescued me from a time of evil. Therefore I will thank and praise you, and I will bless the name of the Lord, striving for wisdom. While I was still young, before I went on my travels, I sought wisdom openly in my prayer. Before the temple I prayed about her, and I will search for her to the end of my life. From blossoms to ripening grapes, my heart rejoiced in her. My foot embarked on her righteous path, and from my youth I hunted for her. I inclined my ear a little and received her. I found much instruction for myself. There was progress for me in her. To him who gives me wisdom, I will give glory. For I purpose to practice wisdom, and I was zealous for the good, and was not put to shame. My soul strove earnestly for her, and I examined myself closely in my performance of the law. I stretched out my hands to the heights, and mourned my ignorance of her. I directed my soul to her, and in purification I found her. I acquired a heart for her from the beginning. Therefore I was not forsaken. My heart was stirred to search for her, and therefore I gained a good possession. The Lord gave me a tongue as my reward, and I will praise him with it. Draw near to me, untaught ones, and lodge in my school. Why do you say that you are lacking in these things? Yet you let your souls thirst exceedingly. I opened my mouth and said, gain wisdom for yourselves without money. Place your neck under her yoke, and let your soul receive her instruction. She is near that you might find her. See with your own eyes that I labored little, but found much rest for myself. Partake of instruction with a great amount of silver, and gain much gold with it. May your soul be gladdened by his mercy, and may you not be put to shame when you praise him. Do your work before the appointed time, and he will give you your reward in his appointed time.
Hey, great job. You made it to the end. If you like this production, you should check out our other channels, thehistoricfaith.com, Scroll Publishing YouTube channel and Scroll Publishing website, and Sound Faith YouTube channel and website. The links are in the description below. God bless.